Hey, spooky kids. You can see the things are a little different. My camera's over here because I've been shooting my shots for the interview for the documentary. So I've got cameras over in places that they normally aren't. I apologize for that, but show business is the business I chose. And then these are the little things that happen. Broadcasting from the crossroads of America in the heart of the great Midwest, this is Into the Night, and I'm James Mitchell. Today I've got a story for you. Let's see here. If you read Skeptical Inquirer, you probably feel sure you can tell what is pseudoscience and what isn't. For example, homeopathy, that's pseudoscience. Chemistry, definitely not. Astrology, yes. Physics, no. UFOs, yes. Biology, no. You get the idea. But sometimes it's not so clear. Take SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Some might wonder if it is pseudoscience. I don't think it is, but I understand why someone might question it. What about parapsychology, the study of things like telepathy? I believe that to be pseudoscience, but others would disagree. Many philosophers who study the difference between science and pseudoscience generally agree on what counts as pseudoscience. For instance, in a book that was written by somebody, I don't have that information, it was said that philosophers and scientists can usually spot pseudoscience when they see it. Another philosopher, Sven Hansen, also points out that there's a lot of agreement on things like creationism, astrology, and homeopathy being pseudoscience, though some areas are debated. We may not have a clear line between science and pseudoscience, maybe because there isn't one, but we often think we can tell the difference. A recent study by Kjær Latrude from Inland Norway University of Applied Sciences suggests that we might not be as good at identifying pseudoscience as we think. Latrude looked at different academic papers to see how often certain topics were labeled as pseudoscience. Surprisingly, only a few topics had clear agreement among the authors. While there was strong agreement on obvious cases like astrology and creationism, there was much less agreement on others like alternative medicine and climate change denial. And for many topics like the Bermuda Triangle and Feng Shui, that word, there's almost no agreement at all. This lack of agreement may seem surprising, but it's partly because most scientists and philosophers don't write much about pseudoscience. Latrude only found 149 papers out of 2.5 million that discussed pseudoscience, which is a very small number. So the lack of agreement isn't because people disagree, it's more that they don't talk about these topics much. For example, the Bermuda Triangle was only mentioned in 4 papers. 2 said it was pseudoscience, 1 said it wasn't science, and 1 was undecided. With so few mentions, it's hard to say if there's a real agreement. But if you ask most skeptics, they probably agree it's pseudoscience. Despite these findings, Latrude suggests that when trying to figure out what is pseudoscience, we should focus on the obvious cases like homeopathy and astrology. But the most interesting discussions often happen with topics that are less clear, like SETI. It's an interesting read that I found over on Skeptical Inquirer. Kenny Biddle writes for that magazine, I'm sure all of you know. Question of the day: who is your favorite superhero, and who is your favorite villain? I was always a big fan of Gambit. And Gambit is often overlooked. I just like the gamer aspect. Super villain. I mean, I guess if we're talking comic books, I think I always enjoyed Apocalypse or Omega Red. Omega Red was a cool one. Often overlooked as well. But as far as we're talking about villains in general, I mean, Darth Vader or Skeletor. 2 very different people, but Skeletor's dope. Tonight, we have a guest who's taking a fresh approach to the intersection of mental health and the paranormal by blending critical thinking with a deep understanding of mental wellness. He's creating content that's both educational and entertaining. While working a full-time job, he dedicates his free time to helping others as a recovery coach and peer support specialist. He's also the creative mind behind a unique YouTube channel that explores how mental health issues can often be mistaken for paranormal experiences. Alongside his animated sidekick Ned, he uses humor and logic to address topics like gaslighting, paranormal profiteering, and the effectiveness of various paranormal tools. His mission is to promote mental health awareness while encouraging viewers to think critically about their experiences. Through his videos, he aims to bridge the gap between the supernatural and psychological realities, offering viewers a more balanced perspective on both. He's had his own paranormal experiences, believes in the supernatural, and is passionate about helping others navigate the complexities of mental health and the unknown. I would like everybody to please welcome to the stage Johnathon from Debunk the Junk. How we doing, my friend? Oh. Oh, no problem, my friend. Well, I'm just based on the homework that I've done, I feel like that's kind of the direction it seems to be going. And there's not enough channels that do that kind of thing. You know, a lot of there's never the gap being bridged between what mental health is like based on, you know, and the paranormal. You hear people say things like, oh, this person is clearly mentally unstable, but it doesn't really go much further than that, you know. So I really like how you're kind of shining a light on those kinds of things. Oh, they can't. All right, let me fix that. I've got you. There's always one little thing that I get wrong. And right here. Now they should be able to hear you. Go ahead and say hello.
Welcome, everyone.
There we go. Now they
can you hear me all right now?
Yeah, I'm sure they can hear you just fine now. I can see it. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Doing 150 things at once and trying to make sure the show is running smoothly. We always run into some sort of little issues.
You got this, man.
Thank you. In the chat, we've got Blueberry329, Brian Reinhardt, Candy7, Debunk the Junk, Devon Zipper, Faith Burris, Janice Crammond, Julie Jayadi, Michael Burkeen, Mike O. Minerals, Sky Talker, Stay Tuned CC, Steph Cuervo Queen, Tammy Mom of Twins, and X Live X. Got some new people in the chat I have not seen before, so that's super cool. Welcome, everybody. And again, welcome, Johnathon. Thank you so much for doing this for me, my friend. I really appreciate you. I want to pick your brain and let everybody who doesn't know much about you to learn more. I'm also going to pull down the volume of that music just a touch too, because that can be a little abrasive, especially when it's elevator music that sounds like it's from some sort of comedy. Where are we at here? So, your YouTube channel, Debunk the Junk, which I've linked in the description. Anybody can go down there and subscribe to the guy if you want to and see what his channel is about. A little over 40 videos, very quick videos. Most of them are short, very easy to digest, get straight to the point. What inspired you to make your YouTube channel, and what was it that brought the name Debunk the Junk? Where did this all come from?
Well, good question. Debunk the Junk. Well, for me, you know, and I guess I'll start with just kind of giving a brief history. I mean, I've consumed an unhealthy amount of paranormal content for probably about 27 years. And I mean, back in the day, from Unsolved Mysteries and the original like Ghost Hunters, and then what became the, you know, Ghost Adventures and all that stuff. Anything that you would actually find on television, because prior to that, we didn't have YouTube yet to actually, you know, partake of this. And like you mentioned, I have definitely had 3 distinct paranormal experiences myself. And Debunk the Junk is the name itself came from the concept of to kind of cut through the noise and the confusion and the chaos, because ultimately we're all looking for some type of truth, some type of meaning behind whatever our experiences that we're having.
Right.
And I think in order to do that, to arrive at some type of understanding, you kind of have to level the playing field. And a part of that is saying, okay, we can accept the plethora of entertainment that is there,
Right.
that's got certain narratives that depict paranormal content or paranormal activities in a certain way. And then there's real life personal experiences that may not reflect that at all, but are just as valid, if not, my argument would be more so, because they're personal experiences. And so Debunk the Junk is really, it's about critically thinking your way through your emotions, your ideas, your belief structures, to arrive at some deeper understanding, and hopefully being able to take that, apply it to your own personal experiences, your own personal life, and live a more fulfilling life.
Yeah. Again, something that's very overlooked, I think. Where did the mental health advocacy begin? I mean, what led you to become a recovery coach and a peer support specialist?
All right. Well, let's see. Recovery and I mean, I don't talk about that much on the channel or whatever, and I'll intend to do more of that eventually at some point. But, recovery coaching, peer support specialist work actually came out of an act of self-preservation. Okay. I myself have suffered from PTSD. I myself have had bouts with mental health. I myself have, my particular thing was alcoholism. I drank solid for 7 years, man. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot to some people, because I've had clients that are like, man, I've been drinking my whole life. I drank with purpose for 7 years. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Okay. And ultimately, it was in an effort to try to fill a hole in me, a void in me that I had later came to understand. And that process of recovery for me, and I think that's you say the word recovery, and it's people like, oh no, here we go, we're gonna do some meditation, or it's kumbaya and all that bullshit. Recovery is everyday process, every breath. And the thing is that there's a lot of stigma, and we'll jump into that when it comes to the mental health issue, that surrounds the idea of, well, I have a problem, and we only ever deal with problems because a problem is only a problem when it becomes a problem. Okay? Right. And that's usually out of repercussion. I crashed my car, or I, was having unhealthy thoughts, or the list goes on, but we never address the underlying issues until after it becomes an issue, or it's out there for the rest of the world to see. And so a lot of what I do, what my wife and I both do, is to try to negate some of the stigma that surrounds that, because the only way you are ever able to approach anything is by being able to have discourse, be able to have open lines of communication. And you sure as hell can't have that if people are afraid to even talk about the problem, right?
Right.
So, and that's where, my recovery work came from. Like I said, it was an act of self-preservation for myself, learning that, man, if I can do this, if I can dig my way back out of hell, anybody can do it. And, and it's something that I'm not here trying to save the world. I'm not some white knight on a horse coming to say, hey, I got all the fucking answers, because I don't. I'm sorry. Can I even cuss?
Yeah. You're fine.
I apologize for adult language for anybody who's not wanting that. Tall talk. But, like I said, I'm not trying to save the world. That's not what I'm doing. But I am trying to find a way that for those who, at the end of the day, you're not alone. Whatever it is that you're dealing with, you're not alone. And if that's my message I can bring forward and promote people to want to have those conversations, to You know, and I think that it's interesting that the realm of the paranormal, there's a lot where one could argue, and especially in my work, I've seen that there is mental health issues, okay?
Sure.
And more than likely unaddressed mental health issues that have led to substance abuse, that has led to a plethora of things. And like I said, this is like onions, man. I'm like, you know, peeling back the layers to try to figure out what the hell's going on. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered any of your questions, but
Yeah, well, definitely, yeah. I mean, you talk about it's you know, recovery isn't just something that happens. You have to show up for yourself. It's work that takes every day, and you have to show up and do the work every day. And identifying that there was an issue, you know, I think I understand why there are people out there that are like, oh, you've only drank for 7 years, I've drank for 35, and it's like, well, I don't know if you're wearing that as a badge of honor or not. It doesn't necessarily matter, because the problems of alcohol stem almost immediately once you start going down that path. It just takes a while, and it may take years for you to identify that and then come out of realizing, wow, I have a problem. And, you know, that's the first step, is being able to admit, okay, I have an issue here. I want to get better. And I think the scariest thing about sobriety for those who are not sober is staying sober, right? Yeah. And one thing that happens is you put a lot of pressure on yourself. Now you have to be held accountable, but really, I think when you start showing up for yourself and you start really wanting to get better, it never gets easy, but it gets easier, you know, the more that you show up for yourself and the more that you do the work. So,
you know,
go ahead.
I just wanted to say real quick, Jimmy, that you know, it's my drug of choice, if you will. It just happened to be alcohol. Okay, that was accessible. It was something that I could do. You know, and like I said, I did that for a solid 7 years. Now, when I say that, I mean, I drank enough vodka to kill 2 Russian armies. Okay, that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
Now, but that just happened to be my vice. Okay, and the thing that you learn through when you start to do self-evaluation and go in your thing, there's all sorts of addictions, man. You could be addicted to work. You could be addicted to any type of narcotic. There's all sorts of addictions. You could be addicted to fucking drama. How much of that shit have we seen?
Totally.
Right? Okay.
Totally.
So addiction is everywhere.
Right.
Anything that's not held within moderation, that you place above the values of yourself and others, that's a fucking problem. Okay. And that's what that looks like. Now, within the work that I've done in the recovery field and doing as a peer support specialist, man, I will not go into details. I abide by HIPAA. But I have heard a plethora of things, and I've heard every excuse you can possibly think of for why I would choose to be this way, why my behavior is this way. Ultimately, I stand by a very simple principle. You're in recovery when you say you are. Okay? Yeah. Because I can't make you go there. Right. No one's going to make you go there. And recovery, this isn't like, and I didn't mean to put the focus of this interview on my work in recovery field, do that, but it is at the heart and soul of what Debunk the Junk does with my videos. How I there's a reason why they're short, because I want them easily to be digested. Right. It's not, man, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Ned and I, we accept that, okay? But we're gonna put the information out there. If you want to know more about it, that's why we make a point to put you know, links and everything in the show notes and whatnot. It's, at the end of the day, addiction is real, trauma is real. There's so many negative things out there in the world to be, you know, concerned about and have to deal with. Debunk the Junk is ultimately about hope. I cling to hope. No matter what, I will be that idiot that's clung to the mast of the ship going, no, we can still make it. Right. There's always hope. And and the other part is, you're not alone. Whatever it is that you think you're experiencing, you're not alone. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't mind that we're talking about this, because this show deals with a lot of different topics, even though it's been a lot of paranormal, and we'll get into that too at some point. But the fact that you say it's at the heart of what it's about, that's why it's important to shine a light on that, and to bring it to the viewers that are here now who don't know a lot about you. I mean, as the viewers are learning, I'm learning a lot of things about you too. It's, you know, this is our first major discussion at all. And yeah, so never
Be gentle
apologize.
with me, Jimmy.
Oh, you're doing great, for real. You know, you brought up an interesting point about you can be addicted to all kinds of things. And, you know, I remember a point where I've been addicted to depression. Because I thought that it helped define who I was as a person. And I clung to that and used it as a muse for a lot of my creative things that I was doing, mostly music, you know.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off, Jimmy, but isn't that ironic? Because I did music for 20 some years, brother. I played in bands, cut 3 albums. It was the cliche of saying that you had to be that rock star, right? That rock star mentality, drugs, alcohol, all of that shit.
Right.
That it became the identity, right? Like it's the id of what that is. And so we end up we assimilate ourselves to that ideology.
Yeah.
It's what do they say? It's like art imitating life, life imitating art.
Right.
Right. And then I've even had people say, well, I can't be creative unless I'm fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
And it's a crazy thing.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, it's just when you said that, I was like, no, that's a dead-on statement, man. I've seen that, I've lived that.
Yeah,
sorry,
and no, you're fine. And that story, right? What you just discussed there is, oh, I can't do it unless I'm buzzed or whatever. That's a story that you tell yourself in order to continue to keep in the behavior that you're comfortable with. And that alone in itself, it's very hard to break out of that and to just admit to yourself, you know, I mean, I think for me, it was like, how like, happiness is a choice, you know, there's a choice there. And you find yourself putting yourself in, when you're addicted to this depression or addicted to that lifestyle, you find yourself putting yourself into situations so that you can further be tainted or jaded. And it's like, this is no way to live. This is no way to live, because I don't want to wake up every day pissed off that I'm awake and now I have to be alive and do the life thing. And, you know, anything can set you off from, oh, I went to the gas station, and just as I went to the gas station, there was some douchebag buying lottery, and now I have to stand there for 20 minutes while he gets it. It's just like, so what? So what? There are worse things. Maybe there's a reason why you're standing behind this person for 20 minutes. Maybe if you got into the car right when you thought you needed to, there'd be an accident. Any number of butterfly effect reasons, you know. And it's easier to just, I think, well, it's not easy. It takes a minute, but to exercise the muscle of being thankful in all situations, to find something that you're gracious for, that you have gratitude for. That's what I've tried to kind of fall back on when I find myself battling with negativity, recentering myself and exercising that muscle, catching yourself in the moment and saying, okay, no, and thinking of reasons to be happy, thinking of what you're blessed with and stuff like that. It takes again, it takes work. It takes showing up for yourself and catching yourself. And that is not easy, you know, and that's why I think it's important to have somebody like you, a coach or a sponsor, as some in the AA or the NA will call it, a sponsor, somebody that they can talk to that can help recenter them and help give you these tools to change the course of where your life is headed. Yeah, do you have something to add on that?
I think the things that, you know, this is something I've said many times in groups and doing whatever, but, you know, the thing is no one promised you that it was going to be rainbows and butterflies all the time.
Right.
Okay. Life happens, man. Whether you want to participate or not, life happens. And sometimes that's shit that we don't agree with, things that we find tragic, things that we, it hurts. Life is hard. But that responsibility ultimately falls upon us, ourselves, to show, like you said, I love how you put that, show up for yourself, right? And that applies to critical thinking, being able to think for yourself, okay? And then ultimately arrive at your own conclusions, your own ideas, start to foster that creativity, that ability to decipher for yourself and to arrive at your own conclusions, and then apply that to your life. And that again, this goes to, this is far reaching. It's not just mental health. It's not just drug addiction. It's not consuming paranormal content on YouTube or creating channels or doing whatever. It's life in general.
Right.
And, so it's funny because a lot of my work does continue to be in the AODA, alcohol and drug related field, and doing with that, because that's just the immediate after effect problems, right? Like I got court ordered for Al-Anon, or not Al-Anon, but for the 12-step program or whatever it is, a program, because I got a speeding ticket or I got pulled over drunk driving, right?
Right.
It was a repercussionary effect, right?
Yeah.
And man, I'm the worst person on the planet, because until I learned it for myself and chose to show up for myself, there wasn't going to be shit that changed me or changed the ID, my id that I created. That to do that work myself. And the thing is, there's no magic band-aid for this.
Right.
It's an everyday process. That's why people fucking give up, because what do you mean? I got to take the time to actually show up for myself today?
Right.
I just wanted to coast through life right now, man. I don't have to deal with this shit. It's an everyday thing, and it's about grace, giving yourself the grace to know, man, it's going to be a hard day. I'm going to fail. You can't give up on yourself.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. You just don't give up on yourself. And it's like, you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to struggle. The major component to what I'm doing here with Debunk the Junk, trying to get the information out there, is just to say, one, you're not alone. Two, if you want help, there's plenty of resources out there to try to find help. But ultimately, like I said, man, you're in recovery when you say you are.
Yeah.
No one's coming to save you.
Right. And I mean, it's awesome that we live in an age where all these resources are available. But until you find your why, those resources can seem empty. And it's because, again, they're looking outward for the answers rather than looking inward. And that, man, it's easy to, and I say it's easy. It's easier, I think, to just, like you said, fuck it. Fuck it. Yeah. This is what I'm comfortable with. This is what I've been doing. This is where I've been. I'm never going to change. All these stories that you tell yourself. And
my fuck it usually came with a pint of vodka. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
More time than I care to remember. Yep.
Yeah. And it's amazing because not everybody, that has the epiphany, the lightning that struck your brain. Not everybody has that and can make it out. I have friends, my friend, who I know in 10 years' time, they're going to be shaken. They're going to be shaken because they can't, we started partying when we were in our late teens, early 20s, and then once it became legal and alcohol is so easily accessible, there's places where you can go and drink it. And I've seen my friends slowly deteriorate over time. And I know that unless they get a hold of it now, when they're in their 50s, they're not going to be able to not have a drink. I already have a buddy who is suffering serious neurological problems. He can't control his body correctly. It's like he's drunk even when he's not. Yep. And it's awful because I love that person so much, and to see and hear about the things that they're dealing with, it's like like you said, ultimately you're in recovery when you say you are. And I can only be there and listen and try to be supportive, I'm happy to play that part in people's lives, but there's nothing that I can do or say that's going to snap for you, that's going to change the direction. You have to come to that conclusion on your own. And it's better late than never. You know, if it takes you, all of a sudden now you're shaking, it sucks that you got to that point before you decided to get help. But at least you are aware and are trying to move forward, you know.
You know, and I want to say that real quick too, Jimmy. So because I'm not going to be that asshole that stands on a soapbox and fucking preaches shit,
Sure.
right? I'm not doing that, because I am the worst among all of. I have done. If there was a way to fuck myself sideways in my reality, my world, I've already taken it. Right. It's only by the grace of whatever that I'm here now.
Right.
Now, that's not some religious tones, and we'll get into that later too. It's just the fact of reality.
Right.
We are all on our own path. Okay. And wherever that takes us, however long it takes us, maybe for some, it might not ever be ever. Okay.
Right.
And we know those people. And we were saying that about the alcohol and the shakes. Fucking last year, I sat with 2 people that passed with liver failure because of alcoholism. And then they started taking pills to relieve the symptoms of liver failure. So compounded the issue. Watched them die. 2 of them, 2 separate people. I couldn't save them.
Right.
Okay. That's not what my job was.
Right.
My job was to be there, to bear witness, and to say, this is what we are. And all I know is wherever we're heading in this great mystery of life, we have a choice. One of them is that we can arrive there together.
Right.
Okay. And so,
yeah, and the understanding, what you just said there was beautiful. And the idea of, now I'm paraphrasing, but you know that sobriety doesn't make you better than anybody who isn't sober. The only person that you are better than is yesterday's you.
yeah, that's,
Right.
dude, that is probably one of the best ways I've heard that put. You did me a solid there. That's a good one. Because that, at the end of the day, all of this clouding, all this bullshit where we think that it's going to be, well, I have to make X amount of money. I've got to do this. I got to have 1 billion goddamn subscribers, whatever it is you think that's reaffirming the ideology of who you are.
Right.
You're only accountable to who you are. And the way we advance that is to be fucking better than we were yesterday.
Right.
Okay. And I love that. That is absolutely true, because this is dude, my sobriety, and if anybody wants to know, yes, I drank solid for 7 years, and it took near death, and that's a whole nother story, before I chose to wake up and do something different. And it was a choice.
Right.
It was a choice. Now, dude, I was sleeping, like I said, today is technically, my wife and I are off Mondays and Tuesdays. That's our Saturdays and Sundays. But we also have class. We're in college and doing this stuff too. And I'm doing a documentary for a guy. And anyways, there's always something to keep you busy, right? But even in the midst of being busy, man, I have bad days, especially where I'm dealing with a lot of customer service, customer relation work. And I'm just man, I don't fucking want to hear this shit. I don't want to be doing this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's I take my breaths, I do my internal check on who I am, and I try to do better.
Yeah.
And that's not pining over the shit you wish you could have changed.
Right.
It's the grace to let that go, to forgive yourself, and to move forward. Yeah. I'm not absolving you of the shit that you might have done or that I may have done, but I'm saying the only process to move forward is to make peace with that and to take that first step.
Yes.
And man, you're gonna fall flat on your face. That shit happens all the time. I fall flat on my face all the time. It's hard. It's hard. Living life is hard.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible, right?
Yeah. And I'm becoming more and more in love with life every day. And also learning not to hang our hats on yesterday's achievements. That's another one that I hear a friend of mine who, he was in a band and he went and he toured and he did the life that I wanted to live when I was young. And that was almost 20 years ago, and he still talks about it as if it's the best thing he ever did. And it's like, that sucks. I don't want to be like that. you know, and it's part of the reason why he drinks, you know. I love the dude, but I hate watching him, you know, rip himself apart. Ned, what's the story behind the creation of Ned? What's the purpose of Ned for you as well?
Ned. Okay, so on the original channel I had, which was Spooky Dookie Reviews, it was 2 cartoon ghosts, Big Blue, Little Blue, okay? And it was me and my stepson. We were doing, basically it was just doing reactions to like Twins Paranormal, which ended up being a fucking bad idea. But yeah, we got some shit. But anyways, so it was, and people seemed to like the ghost, you know, the little
Sure.
cartoon shit, whatever. You know, and ultimately, like I said, I had to let that channel go. And when I decided to come back at doing this, especially after completing my service term with AmeriCorps and doing a lot of this work, I'm like, Ned gets to be my alter ego. Okay?
Right.
Ned gets to say the shit. I get to play devil's advocate and to kind of be maybe a voice of reason and apply any of the things that I have learned, where Ned can be the asshole. Ned can say the things I can't say. Ned can be like, he can call me on my bullshit, and you know what, that check and balance system, if you will. Yeah. And he's also comic relief.
Right.
He's kind of a dick, but yeah, I love him.
Yeah, I enjoy thoroughly, and there aren't a whole lot of creators that I know of that do it, but the one that comes to mind is the Y-Files.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. That's the. Yeah. I think I've heard people who are like, I don't like Hecklefish, or I don't. They may just not understand what Hecklefish really is, and to me, he's the voice of the angry commenter. He's the voice of the, He's the tinfoil hat. He's all of these, the embodiment of all of this, and he gives that side of it a voice, while also remaining sort of. The show gets to remain ambiguous, you know, between these topics, and I think it's a very clever thing to do.
It was awesome. I had posted like 3 videos for Debunk the Junk, and then I was just looking through to see who was live, because everybody's doing lives, and I was just seeing who posted stuff, and I got recommended the Y-Files.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, what the hell is this? So I started watching it, and I'm like, where has this been my whole life? Because that's like, I love watching it, because it's crazy, because I get to learn. Like, I see what big production does, right? Like, 'cause that's no joke. The amount of money that goes into that production is crazy. And I know people just look at it and be like, oh, whatever, it's like some fish in a bowl and blah, blah, blah. They got a whole freaking team behind them that creates that stuff. And here I am, and I did all of those videos on my phone. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have my laptop anymore, because we moved. And I'm like trying to make this on a phone. But the Y-Files is amazing. And so, not that I'm wanting to copy them, but the formula works. Yeah. It's proven. He has already proven that it works. But again, Ned Ned gets to be, I get to bounce stuff off, not in real time. Where's the camera? But I get to bounce stuff off with Ned to allow that to be what maybe an actual discourse or conversation would be for other people. Basically like role play, right? Because I don't know, that's a whole nother thing. I was a teacher for 20 some years. So, I mean, I worked with littles for a long time, and to be able to break that down, and that's why they're short. That's why they're not epic 30-minute long videos. Because believe me, I'd love to just sit and record myself for 4 hours, but trying to edit and edit into all of that is a whole nother monster. You know what I mean? Sure. But no, I try to present the information as direct as I can, because I'm not going to flower shit. I'm not going to use tactics to get you to agree. I'm not wanting anyone to agree with me. I'm wanting them to use, and as a matter of fact, I'll go to the extent of pissing you off so you think about it and then arrive at your own conclusion. Yeah. That's just kind of, and that's what Ned's there for.
Yeah.
So,
which is another great tool. I mean, you know, not being afraid to piss somebody off. You know, and not that you're doing it on and overly doing it or anything, but using it as a tool. It is a power of manipulation to a degree. I've used it.
I do have to agree with that.
Yeah, I've used it to get, I have musical friends, and when I have an idea for a song, I think about which person would be perfect for whatever part, and then when they're not delivering because their mind is somewhere else, I'll give them a rash of shit, and I will tell them exactly how it is and make them pissed off so that they prove me wrong, and I'm doing it on purpose. I'm so it's again, it's a clever tool to be able to use. And when I use the word manipulation, I don't mean it in such a way that it's toxic. It's just, you're bringing the best out of this person, and if it takes manipulating to get there, that there's a positive outcome. So therefore, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
No, you know what that is, Jimmy? That's about intention. Okay,
You're right.
It's about having that intention, which is, another thing that my wife and I are both. We're certified Reiki masters. Okay, and the Reiki is the concept of that energy work and doing all that. Though I'm more like I am with Debunk the Junk. I am an active skeptic because I'm looking for realism and real life application. So, and a part of what we do with Reiki is the tapping techniques for. That's another big tapping techniques for veterans and people that suffer, not just veterans, but people that suffer from PTSD, to be able to get them more into a relaxed state, to be able to communicate. There's a whole thing behind it. But the reason why I bring up the Reiki is because there's a set of principles at the core of Reiki, one of which is imperative, and that is just for today. Just for today, in which if anybody that is in the AODA or the alcohol related, they'll hear a reminiscent effect of this, is that God grant me serenity, just what I mean, just for the today, one step at a time. Anyways, but the principle behind it is about being here present now, and that's about setting your intentions. What is my intention? My intention right now is to have an open conversation with you, to allow this to reach as many people as it can, and to be honest and to be transparent. That's my intention. Now, I might say things that people don't disagree with, but my intention still remains the same, that I want to be transparent. I want to have this open discourse between you and I. And that's a part of that process for each day when we're dealing with our problems, our ups and downs, is like understanding, well, what is my intention today? Well, if my intention is just to get through or to get by, well, you'll start to find out that you'll find any way to accommodate that or to accomplish that. And that can actually lead to divisive things. But if you come at it from, challenging yourself, well, what is my intention? Well, maybe I want to be a little bit healthier. Maybe I don't want to hate fucking life so much today. Right. You know what I mean? Maybe I want to smile, to set that forth for yourself. And it can be simple things, just simple little things, but they have such a profound impact. And like you were saying that about, that guy, your example, the dude buying lottery tickets and I got held up, whatever. The idea of being present, being here now, is to catch yourself and go, well, I believe I have someplace better and more important to be, but maybe there's a reason why I am standing here.
Exactly.
And would it hurt maybe to smile at the clerk? Maybe would it hurt to not be an asshole and pollute the energy, the field, the area with my negative energy because I don't want to fucking be here? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's all these little things, and it's hard because we get caught up in everyday life, man. And like I said, life's hard, but
and emotions. A lot of us are very what's the word? Basically, we're accustomed to letting our emotions dictate how we act. Yeah. And when you get pissed off, and even though that clerk had nothing to do, they're just doing their job. And then that person leaves, and then you're short with the clerk or whatever, Yeah,
somehow it was their fault.
Right. Yeah. I'm a firm believer now in you receive what you put out. I've learned a lot in my self-help journey, because even this channel and doing what I'm doing right now is a part of my self-help journey.
Exactly. And I didn't want to say that to you, Jimmy, but I've watched you. And I see that for you, man, and I want to commend you for that. Brother, it's not fucking easy. I get it. No, but that's amazing, dude. And you're doing an amazing job, by the way.
Thank you.
I love this whole setup. It's awesome.
I appreciate it. Again, I was a trolly person. I was angry with myself, and things didn't pan out the way that I wanted them to. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter. This is where I'm at. make the most of what you have and be kind to people, you know. And it's not always easy, but I do my best to stay on that path, you know. But so I appreciate it. That's awesome that you were able to pick up on that. Um, what personal experiences with the paranormal have shaped your views on the connection between mental health and the supernatural?
All right, how much time we got?
Well,
Because I can, brother, I can break out story time for you if you want. I
yeah,
do this shit for you. All right,
no,
no.
well,
All right, so let me set the stage a little bit. So I was raised by my grandmother and my grandfather. Okay.
mhm.
I was raised in Ocala, Florida, right dead in the center of the state of Florida. My grandfather was a reverend. Um, he was a Baptist reverend, and my grandmother, a little tiny Iroquois Indian lady, but was a default Catholic. Right.
Okay.
So I was supposed to be a priest. My grandmother sent me to Catholic private school. I was actually supposed to be a priest. Obviously, that didn't happen.
No, right.
But I learned quite a bit of things.
Mhm.
And my first paranormal experience, and I've had, like I said, 3 distinct ones, actually a handful of other things, but the 3 ones that stand out the most. My very first one, I'll just start at the beginning. My grandparents were having their house built on the outside of town, outside of Ocala. And while we were having the house built, we were living in a 3-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor, 3-bedroom apartment, apartment complex. And I must have been, I think I was 6 or 7 at the time. Anyways, one evening, I went to go into my room. I had a big queen bed that I slept in my room. But my room was diagonal across the hallway to my grandparents' room. And anyways, I got into bed, everything's normal, going to sleep. And as I started to drift off, there was this, I thought it was someone with a spotlight, like not just a flashlight, but like a spotlight
Mm.
coming from the corner of my bedroom. And I like sat up in bed and I'm looking at, and like my eyes, I could see it because I had my eyes closed. And you know how when shit gets real bright and
Right.
you could still see the light through your eyelids?
Sure. Mhm.
That's what was happening. So as I looked into the corner, I was like completely blinded. And it like took me a minute to realize that this, like, I'm like, what the hell? There's someone in my room with a big flashlight or a spotlight. And, but the light, and as my eyes started to adjust and to see all this, I started realizing that the light was oddly shaped, and it wasn't like that, like what you think of like bright white headlight lights, right? Like a bright light. It was like a more of a golden color.
Okay.
And it had this weird, like almost like oval / diamond shaped appearance to it, radiating out of, just like beaming out of the corner of this bedroom. And it like got taller, like stretched out, like it went from where it was in the center of the corner of the room, and it like crept towards the floor and towards the ceiling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like kind of just dumbfounded because it's bright, and it kind of just took over the whole room, but it was still dark. Like it was bright and dark at the same time. Like it was bright because the light was being
Right.
emitted, but it was darkness all the way around it. And as I'm sitting there trying to wrap my mind around what the hell's going on, I thought maybe my grandfather had come into the room, like the power was out. I didn't know. And then a voice came out of the light, and it said, Johnny, I will never leave thee. And I didn't hear the rest. I fucking ran off my bed, and my feet didn't hit the floor until I was on my grandparents' bed across the hallway. And I landed in between them and my grandfather. He's a giant of a man. He's like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, someone's in my room. And he gets up, stumbles in, he grabs he had a baseball bat that he used to keep when in the room, because he's thinking there's an intruder. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Whatever. Goes in there, and my grandmother's like, what's going on, John? And it's whatever. And he comes back and he's like, no one's in there. What's going on? And he proceeds to like, well, tell me what you saw and whatever. And so I'm saying, well, I was just sleeping and I saw this light and this is, and then I didn't freak out until I heard a voice. You know what I mean? Like I heard something. So the next, I ended up sleeping in bed between them because I was so freaked out by what I saw and whatever. And the next day, my grandfather being a reverend, he had an old tape deck machine that he would record his lectures and his sermons on.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I want you to sit down and just tell me everything that you saw, and just talk into this microphone and tell me everything you saw. And so I did. And it was crazy is when I turned 18, actually it was prior to that before I went into the service, but I went down, my grandfather had since passed away, and went down to visit my grandmother in Florida while she was still alive. And she had that cassette tape. And so I listened to that tape of the 6-year-old me reciting this story. That was a surreal moment to hear my voice talking about this. And it said that, Johnny, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. And I was like, that sounds so biblical, right? You know what I mean? Especially years later when I went into, Catholic private school and whatever. But anyways, that was like the very first time something happened that I couldn't wrap my mind around. You know what I mean? And I think it became easier that I just said, oh, that, because my grandmother, she was like hell bent on like, no, that was an angel or somebody talked to you. That's what that was about. Right. So she had that affirming part for me that way, saying that that's what that was. My grandfather's, and it's funny because he was a reverend, and he's like, there's been some stuff that's happened. And so, but he wanted to document all of it, right? Mm-hmm. Thank God he did. So I got to listen to it later. But yeah, so that was my very first experience with something that I to this day, it's more comfortable for me to believe that maybe it was an angel. Maybe it was some type of religious thing that happened, right? Maybe delusional, if that, which is interesting because I had, for people that don't know, I traveled all around the country with my grandfather to different churches, because a lot of what he did is he would meet with the faculty and basically the people in charge of the churches, and they would have meetings and whatnot, but then he would prepare a sermon, then he would do a guest talk and whatever, and blah, blah, blah. So I got to go all over the country, and I've seen churches every part of this country, and different walks of life, if you will, different backgrounds, if you will. So it's been that was a very interesting childhood that way. But like I said, I think that, is it possible that those religious connotations had an effect on me? You know what I mean? Or at least as I got older, skewed the perception of what I experienced. But that, again, that was the first time I had a paranormal experience.
Right on. Yeah. Real quick, I want to thank Julie Jaya D for gifting a GhostQuest membership to Julie R. Julie, you now have access to members-only perks. There's a couple of videos. One just came out last week with an interview of somebody who didn't make the cut to the documentary. Again, thank you, Julie Jaya D, for the gifted membership. I appreciate you so very much. And Sky Stream Elements is actually my a bot that I have to help me see when those things happen, those kinds of events. So I don't blame you for talking to Stream Elements as if it could talk back to you, but it won't. So don't feel like it's being rude. Yeah, very interesting. I can't imagine. The first thought I had was there something that you were going through right before this? Was there a sense of loss happening in your life, or was something uncertain? I mean, of course, you're talking about being very little. I'm wondering what would cause whatever this being was to come to you in such a way, and was it, was
to this day, I don't know. I mean, because, you would like to think, and I ran that gambit too of like, well, maybe because I've been to so many churches, even up to that, at that point, I had been to a lot of different churches. And so all of the iconography, all of the things could have played into whatever. And maybe that's what it was, yeah. And I have to accept that it could have been nothing more than me creating something that I needed to have at the time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and if I look back at, like, you know, the reason why I was with why my grandparents raised me, or why I was with them, is because my mom was a tumbleweed. She did whatever she wanted. She was the only daughter out of 4 kids, and she was a princess, so she got to run off and do whatever she wanted at the time. So my grandparents picked up the mantle of raising me, you know, and thank God they did at that time. But, you know, so I mean, if there was, like, maybe there was something in there, or like maybe mama issues, or, you know what I mean? Like, I tried to run all of that through the lens of, you know, anything other than it was fucking God talking to me from the corner of my room. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
You know, and because I even went with, like, my uncles. They all found out about this, and they were like, they thought maybe people were trying to break into the apartment, but they're like, dude, that's the 3rd floor. You'd have to get a
Right.
3-4, you know what I mean, ladder to try to come through a window, and that's not what happened. It was in the corner of the room. So, like I said, and even now, me thinking through it, you know, you can concoct whatever you want. You know what I mean? You can make a narrative out of that for yourself.
Sure.
And I think I've ultimately went with, you know, I don't fully understand what it was, but by its tone, and now years later, having heard the tape and listened to the little version of me reciting that, I take it as a blessing, or as something positive, rather. Okay.
Right.
I'll take it at that. So
yeah, very good. Sky Talker, thank you for the 2 months. 7 months till birth. Glad I brought a few books. I appreciate your 2-month membership, and happy anniversary on that. Can you discuss the role that mental health plays in the way people interpret paranormal experiences?
Well, okay, so that's a very good question, because it's like, again, I think it's left to interpretation, right? Much like the nature of paranormal in and of itself, it's left to interpretation, it's perspective. But I think that, and I can't speak I can't speak specifics about clients, but what I will say is I have had situations where I've had individuals express to me certain paranormal things while simultaneously suffering mental health crises. Okay. And come to find out, and after doing a bunch of research and whatever, this is actually a common phenomenon. Okay. This actually happens frequently. And that's also can run in tandem with substance abuse. It's one is aiding the other, if you will. Okay. So mental health in the paranormal, I think, and this is, again, I'll just cite what I know, but I can't assume, and I will never assume to know everything. That's not what I'm here for. But I will say that it is likely, it is probable that a lot of quote unquote paranormal experiences might actually have something that's attributed to a mental state. Okay. And it could be stress. I mean, shit, how many times have you heard that about, I saw something, but I just worked 16 hours, so I was exhausted. You know what I mean? Shit, that happened to me all the time. I used to drive, I would work 16-hour days and have to drive another 8 to get back to where we were. And which makes for a long time. I was so exhausted that I started seeing shadows move on the road. That's a real thing. That actually happens a lot and causes accidents. So there's things that even fatigue, like actual physical levels of stuff, that can attribute to this. But from the mental well-being or the mental state, yeah, so you're going to want, like, even for me, sharing that story and talking about and trying to deduct what actually happened, depending upon my state of mind, you know, and I lived a good portion of my life going, fuck, I don't even really care what happened, because it didn't help me. It didn't do anything for me. So I was still living in my denial. Okay. But the more I started to come to terms with, you know, why couldn't it have been a positive thing? And it's all through the lens in which you choose to perceive the world. Okay. And I think that it is likely that a lot of paranormal activities can be attributed to mental health issues or crises. And you see this, man. And that's why, and I didn't want to come on here and start bashing channels, and I don't like doing that stuff. That's why I kind of withhold on Debunk the Junk without calling out certain things. But there are channels out there that absolutely monopolize and take advantage of people. which it does not even take a licensed recovery coach or a practitioner to determine that there's other issues at play.
Right.
Okay. That's just stating the fucking obvious, but yet they do it anyways. Okay. And so I have a hard line on that. Ned and I have a hard no on that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But if you actually did your work on that and you go and you see what's this, all we get is the story. Oh, there's a fucking demon in my house and whatever. Well, what's going on with this person? What's happening to them?
Right.
And if that was truly the case, you wouldn't be making a video about it in the first place, because you would actually be doing clinical work. You'd be doing personal work, right?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be all over YouTube, and you wouldn't be getting clicks, likes, and views, right?
Right.
So, no, that, and I'm sorry, because that stuff really does get under my skin, because I've said this before. You know what? Doing this stuff, I know what real demons look like.
Right.
Okay. And it's the ones that you and I carry. Right. Each and every one of us. So I don't need to fabricate some bullshit about a demon attacked me when, no, there's a lot out there that is actually in the fundamentals of our existence that we don't need to create stories.
Right. Yeah. And, a lot of these people, I mean, there is a channel that came directly to mind, which I'm not afraid to say, Paranormal Nightmare.
Yeah. Well, you did it. Fuck them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I'm sorry. No, that's
fine.
Yeah, those guys hit me in
and
the
it
wrong
sucks
place.
because I used to enjoy those guys quite a bit. I used to, I really kind of fell into that trap. But then I started to realize, especially when the Chasing Evil show came on, where they're out with spirit boxes talking to some dead 4-year-old girl that was from Indiana and all that. Dude, I just can't with that kind of thing. And it's one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. Excuse me. There are people that are very clearly suffering some sort of mental anguish, and they can't, for some reason, accept the responsibility of the logical and reality of what the problem is, and push it off onto some sort of invisible deity or something that is not. Because in my experience, demons don't work the way that these shows depict them to work, especially in Hollywood and all that. They don't work that way. Now, I'm not a professional on the subject, but I know what my demons have done to me, and I know how they worked on me. And a lot of it are things that I fed myself. And so, in a way, I guess there's an irony to it, because there is a demon at play in these people's lives. It's just not the demon that they are trying to portray for the camera.
You ever see that movie Session 9?
I have not.
Get a chance, watch it. Anyways, there's a end of that movie. It's about this group of guys that are removing asbestos from an asylum or treatment facility, and some dude finds tapes, and he's listening to these audio recordings of sessions with specific clients, and anyways, at the end of the movie, and I'm telling you, Session 9 it's a good movie, but at the end of it, there's a line in the tape when it's playing, and it says, "I reside in the broken, the weak, and the weary." Okay, and that's where negative is, man. Negative is in our internal perspective. It's in, and that's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't. I'm not ever going to say that there's not demons. Okay,
Sure.
Because I've seen enough to believe that yes, there is, but I believe that to be from the negative. We don't need them climbing up out of hell to come get us when they reside right within us.
Right.
The potential resides right within us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think that now you could say there's a lot on that same topic where, well, is it possible to manifest actual physical activities in our environment? And that's a whole subject of conversation that is well worth, you want to talk about telekinesis, all of these different things. I think there's a lot to be said that you can sit there and logically look through and go, well, yeah, I mean, like the scratch marks on people and things of that nature. Well, is it possible that we are manifesting that through ourselves? Because here's the thing, I absolutely do believe in manifestation too. I believe in positive vibes. I believe in both positive and negative energy. Okay.
Right. Well,
because you can't be naive and believe that one is it's all relevant. It all exists.
Yeah.
And I think that, my problem with it, when you see these things, and Twins Paranormal, and it just goes on and on and on, where every other episode, which even if they're recording one a week, so let's just say it's every month, once a month, someone is being affected by a demon or they're having a demon encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's 12 a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's, do the math. Okay,
right.
So the problem with creating narratives like this is then you're taking away from the very real implications of what negative energy that we carry in ourselves, that we can manifest through ourselves, what that can actually cause on our lives. Okay. Yeah. So if you're telling people, man, I have to have the Spirit Talker 9000 to fucking communicate with this demon, and this is the only way it gives it validity, there's no logic in any of that. It gives it validity for the content that you're creating, but not for the purpose of what it actually is. Yeah. And I think that when you start adding all of this shit, the layers of crap on top of the idea of what a demon is, or what is, I mean, it goes skinwalkers, chupacabra, I mean, whatever it is. When you're twisting narratives and doing these things, you're taking away from the credibility, what could be honest credibility. And that's my whole premise in the paranormal in general. I actually believe, like I said, I do believe in the possibility and the potential of paranormal. But would we even know what it is now if we saw it? If it happened right in front of us right now, would we even know what it is? Right. We've been told a billion different damn things what it is, but would we actually know? And I think with as many cameras that have been used videotaping, oh my God, the countless hours of YouTube content, wouldn't you think there'd be more in there? That there's more. And that's the problem. I actually think too that it's possible that some of the greatest paranormal activity has already been captured. Sure. But we won't fucking know it because it's been dumped on by all the rest of this garbage, because unless it's a demon scratching you and doing all this crazy shit, then it's not a demon, right? Like right. It just, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. That is the whole. Yeah, that's the same fight I'm fighting, and I love hearing it from somebody else that's seeing it for what it is. You know, when you have people who are looking for answers because of someone that they love died and they don't want to know, they want to know that they went somewhere else, or just any number of reasons, because there are so many. You know, to sit here and try and list them all would take years that I don't have time to do. But what happens is these people creating clickbait and sensationalizing and making something out of nothing are, sure, they're lining their pockets, and their wives are happy because they get to spend the money that their husbands are making on YouTube and all of this. But there are those of us who are affected by it in a more negative way, and then we're looked at as though we're crazy or we have mental issues or what other, any other number of things that people can point at us and say, this isn't real. You're not making logical thoughts, or you're not making logical decisions or whatever. And the reality is something is happening to these people, but it's being overshadowed because of all the bullshit. Because people are just, they don't care about you or me or whoever's, reasons. They don't care. And yeah, I think they're some of the most despicable people to just be walking the planet and sharing air with me. It bothers me.
And I agree, but because I'm gonna, the channel that we both just called out on that, I watched them pretty regularly myself in the beginning, and like I said, I've consumed an unhealthy amount of paranormal content for quite a while, and I wanted to see because here's the thing, and I think this is important for people to understand when you're taking in and consuming paranormal content. Once you set a standard, right? So a demon, we went to an asylum, we had a demonic encounter, and it scratched us. Okay. Well, your show dictates that next week you're going to be launching another episode, right? By that narrative, by that standard, you have to continuously up the ante.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where do we go from here? What happens?
Yeah.
So what happens is that they went for the gusto right off the bat. Well, we're gonna have full-blown demon encounters. We're getting scratched. We're chasing them out. We're using the power of God to do what the fuck's next, right?
Yeah.
More importantly, why is it that we don't see a whole lot of follow-up content on places? Why do we not see follow-up interviews? How did our cleansing actually work out for you, right? Like, and it, because there's no monetary gain in that. Not especially if your purpose for being is to continue the narrative that you are a necessity by ridding demons or searching and doing these things, right? Why would you do that to yourself? That'd be professional suicide.
Yeah.
Unalighted. You know, so it's a hard pill for me to swallow, man, because I look at and I say, damn it, I love the intrigue. I love the mystery. I love the fact that I've had experiences that I can't explain that spurn me on, that keep me wanting to know and learn more. And then you see these fucking asshound, these guys going out there, and they are quick to tell you exactly, because they're the professionals, right?
Right.
Quick to tell you exactly what it is that you're experiencing. And if you're not experiencing in this fashion, we don't have time for you.
Right.
Because we can't make a video about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Have you had a situation where someone believes they've had a paranormal experience, but it's more than likely linked to their mental health? Have you ever encountered that personally?
Oh, yeah.
Are you willing to talk about it?
Yeah, I can. So, yeah, I had a person that was actually a client, and then we, you know, through the work, we ended up becoming really good friends. And so even outside of my work, we would spend time together. And I could see, I had always had thoughts that there was mental health issues at play. Okay. But during that work, I could never get that person to choose to see it from that perspective.
Right.
Again, because I don't diagnose and I don't do any of that. All I can do is lay it out there and let them do the work for themselves. But ultimately, it ended up being that they were schizophrenic. And a lot with that was paranoia. I mean, shit that was like, my phone is bugged. People are listening to my conversations. They've got cameras in the house. They've got, and I watched this deterioration over the course of shit. It must have been almost a month and a half. Just solid, almost every day, something different. And then during that process is when somehow the rationale was, this isn't adding up for themselves. They started to create alternative thoughts or alternative measures. Well, then maybe there is something moving shit in my house. Maybe there is, and then that progressed into, I'm starting to see things in my house. I'm starting to see shadows move around. And that was reaffirmed by the fact that they already thought people were out to get them, so it could have been possibly somebody breaking in. But when they realized it wasn't, then it had to be a shadow person. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this went on for a while. And all I can say is that luckily the individual finally decided to go and get an evaluation done. And then afterwards, I found out in that particular case where he actually had, not only was all this stuff happening, but he had an infection in his jaw that was poisoning him.
Wow.
And it was causing, so there was a lot, and it was actually literally leading to a psychosis. But anyways, and I watched that run the full gamut of the branch from reality into the realm of the paranormal, into a very fucking real health risk. Okay. So, and like I said, it's a very real thing, and it happens. And unfortunately, it's actually a lot more common than we realize.
Well, how did you go about handling that? How did you, when you were dealing with something like that?
I overstepped my bounds. I was just when it came down to, because dude, I even did shit like I got asked to come and investigate the house to check stuff out and do things, and I already had my suspicions, but I had to try to leave my bias at the door, because here's the thing, and I want to stress this, all right? Just because we may not fucking believe something doesn't mean it's not real to that person. Okay, so my professional, none of that shit mattered. When I crossed that threshold, I'm a newborn in this. I'm taking in what's happening right now. Especially, it had importance because it was a friend of mine. Okay, and and ultimately that just it led to. I knew that I would have to say my piece about it. I went into the house. I spent time. I did this shit. I looked at what happened. Nothing. There was nothing. There was no. And I mean, and I'm not saying that there wasn't nothing. It just there was nothing for me. Right? There was nothing happening to me. But ultimately, I was like, all of this stuff, all of the behavior was a cry for help. Okay. Even and because that's the thing about mental health and a lot of other shit too. We're taught that we're stronger than that. We're taught that we're weak if we ask for help. We're taught that it is a sign of weakness if we have a problem, and it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I was watching him do this, and then ultimately I was like, man, I love you, you're my friend, but this is the shit, and I'm going to tell you what I think. And I had to put that out there, knowing that it could have cost us our friendship. I had to put it out there, and the best thing in the world happened, man. He said, Jonathan, yeah, I'll go and I'll check out. Okay. And he fucking listened, and I thank God that he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah. Good for you.
It was one time that it did work out. It doesn't always end that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, good on you for being a bridge yet again for someone to cross.
I was in the right place at the right time, man.
Yeah.
There's nothing special about me. Anything that I do here on the videos, every single one of us has the ability to do. We have the choice. It's a choice.
Right.
And it's, if you want to care. But be forewarned, man, caring fucking hurts. Caring hurts. You have to have the stomach for it, and take the time, give yourself the grace to come back, heal, do your recovery. Come back at it.
Yeah. What do you think some of the common signs that a supposed paranormal experience could be related to mental health issues like PTSD or anxiety? What do you think some of the common signs are?
So one of the big things, okay, I mean, there's a lot, like
sure.
A part of the recovery coaching and peer support specialist stuff is the training for empathy. Okay, being able to hold space and actually listen, to shut the fuck up for a moment and just listen to another person talk. Okay, it's amazing what they're actually willing to say if you just listen. Okay, and usually there'll be some signs in that, and that can be anything from referring to yourself in the third person. Okay, when you start seeing that as a part of their narrative, when they are disassociating themselves from themselves. That's kind of a big one. But it's also, there's a lot of shit, man. It'll be negative self-talk, and you'll hear that. You'll hear that people start picking on themselves, and they verbally pick on themselves in front of people, willingly be like that. Man, I'm such a piece of shit. Guess what I didn't do today? You know what I mean? Like, there's that negative talk, negative self-ideology.
Right.
Then there's physical things too. There's a lot where people can have tremors, they can have twitches. Some of the red flags are not hygiene, choosing not to shower for days on end. Why? Because they were fucking depressed and they didn't feel like doing it. You know what I mean? There's so many different things. I put a link into that the mental health video that I did. That's just, I strongly suggest people to just take a look at, go educate yourself on, because the funny thing is like, you'll sit there and you'll read some of the stuff and be like, man, fuck, I do that to myself all the time. Do you? Right. Because we all do.
Yeah, sure.
We all do.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's immune to it. We let ourselves down Some of us are more open about it than others. But yeah, that negative talk is definitely detrimental, and it doesn't do any good for you. You know, it doesn't do any nothing constructive comes out of that.
You know, and that's true, Jimmy, that we are our own worst critics.
That's right.
That applies across the board.
Yeah.
However, if it's not constructive criticism, then we should accept the policy that we don't have time for that shit.
Exactly.
Okay? If it's not feeding us, if it's not nurturing us, then we need to move on, or it needs to move on.
Yeah, I say that a lot. If why do you do this? It doesn't serve you. If it doesn't serve you, get rid of it. Get rid of it. You know, and that's I mean, that's not just thoughts. That's people. That's, you know, like I said, who you're choosing. You are the 7 most people you spend most of your time with.
Absolutely.
And yeah, right. And if you are not surrounding yourself with people who only want the best for you, you're not serving yourself. And some of these people have been lifelong friends.
Yep.
And then there's a point where you have to release those people from your life, and release them with love, which is again a very zen place to be in order to do that. But
it's hard, man.
Yeah, it really is.
That grace, we strive for that, and we are going to fail miserably at that. But failure is okay, because at least you're trying. All right, you know, I'll do the Miyagi thing here. You know, there's you know, or the Yoda. There is no try. There is do or do not.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, and I look at this, and I was just going to say too, one of the harshest lessons I had in my life came from my grandfather. And to just summarize this real quick, he told me, Johnny, you're guilty by association. And it took me a minute to realize what that even meant, right?
Yeah.
Like, I may not have done that shit, but I idly stood by and watched it happen.
Right.
Okay? And I continued to participate with the individuals that did do those things.
Yeah.
And the lesson in that came to a point where, and it's exactly what you said, if it's not serving you, and that could be anything, your eating habits, your sleeping habits, the content in which you choose to consume, the people you choose to surround yourself with, okay? If it's not serving you and the better version of who you want to be, you are guilty by association. That's right. Just the way that it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hopefully for some there's a sense of enlightenment there, because we often overlook those things, and it's again it just there's no perfect. I don't have it all figured out, but I know that I have some things figured out, and I know what is serving me and how my life has drastically changed because of the decisions that I've made based on this does not serve me. And you know, I didn't do it alone. I couldn't do it alone because, you know, we have our own thought process, our own paradigm, our own beliefs, and it's often hard to let go of those things when you find something better, because again, it comes down to what you're comfortable with and what you've done, and you know, the definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I don't know how many people I know that do that, and yeah, I mean, again, I'm guilty of it too. I've done it too, and I try to step away from that, and yeah, again, it's not easy. It's work. It's showing up for yourself every day. It's the same thing, you know. So how does humor help you tackle these serious topics?
Dude, there's some times in life that the only answer is to fucking laugh. Okay. And if you can't laugh at yourself, what's the point, you know? Right. So I think humor in this is, you know, there's the science behind laughter, okay? Because there is actual science behind it, where when you invoke a state where you can even get to that place where you actually laugh, and, you know, and I'm not going to get into the whatever, because I'm not a professional and all that, but that there are actual chemicals that are released from being happy, and those chemicals can help balance you out in some cases. And some people that experience mania or the bipolar disorder, there's a whole nother thing on that as well. But humor, I think, is a good place to, one, not take yourself too serious, okay? But to understand that there's a way of conveying information. At least that's what through Debunk the Junk within the humor that we try to implement. And I say we, to see how that's psychosis right there. I refer to Ned and I as we all the time. He's taken on a whole life of his own. But the to have humor in there is to sit there and to be able to go, because what I find is that if you can laugh about something, you're likely or more likely than to actually have some type of cognitive thought process behind it later. Even if it's something serious, a serious topic, and you're able to say something with a sense of humor and trigger whatever that muscle memory, whatever that is, to sit there and then allow you to maybe think a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And that's, at least that's why we use humor in what we do, is we'll say these things. There might be serious topics, but we'll put some humor in there so that you get to a place, and that maybe that's also a ploy on our part to make you comfortable with us, right?
Right.
So comfortable with me, so you're not shooting the messenger, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have to be that jackass that is like, do you know what codependency is? Do you know what parental alienation is? Do you know what fucking all that sucks, man? Yeah. But these are very real things that like G.I. Joe, the more you know what I mean? Like, right. It's you have, if you don't have the knowledge, if you don't know, you just simply don't know, right? Yeah. But it's just like with the state of law, that's no excuse for the law. Not knowing will not suffice in the end. Yeah. So our job is to try to find out. And the same thing applies to the paranormal or anything for that matter.
Right.
It's the attempt to discover.
Yeah. Now, have you ever dealt with like backlash from using humor to address these subjects?
I've done because I've had to do public speaking, a lot of public speaking. There's been times where I will have said something that, especially with like acronyms and things of that nature, where people will have no fucking idea what I'm talking about. So the joke fell hard, right? Yeah. But, overall though, if you see any pushback from the humor, it's usually because it struck a chord, it struck a nerve, right? And then if you're doing your due diligence to understand why that is, be present, be here now, and understand, well, why would that person be upset by what I said? Well, if you're the idiot that said something that maybe you shouldn't have said, that's on me. You know what I mean? If I did that, then I got to owe up to that and make that right. But if it's something else, maybe there's a deeper issue there, and maybe something that could be addressed.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's when someone can't handle what you've said, it's because it's struck a nerve, and it becomes a them problem. Now again, of course, there's a line there that can be drawn. Did I say something I shouldn't have said? But that comes from reading your audience as well. Exactly. How do you come up with the topics for your videos, especially ones that, I mean, I'm saying you're bridging the gap between mental health and paranormal issues, but I don't know if you're doing that voluntarily or if it's just something that's happening. It kind of seems like you're self-aware of what you're doing here. So, but how do you come up with these topics? Like, you want
the truth, Jimmy, or do you want the politically correct and polite?
No. Give me the truth.
Yeah. The truth is, I watch YouTube. I watch you. I watch content, and I see what's being talked about. I'm a spectator. I'm an observer, a witness to the tomfoolery of the internet. I listen, and I start seeing certain topics rise to the top, and then I start seeing narratives created out of those topics, and people with agendas trying to push said narratives out of those topics. And one of the things that'll catch me the quickest is, man, I have dealt with so much in the realm of narcissistic individuals. I can see that shit a mile away. Okay. And so I see when gaslighting is happening. That was that last video I just put out there. I can see it immediately. I can see when twisting someone's words against them for the attempts of controlling the narrative and maintaining the narrative. And so I'll go back and I'm like, man, this shit is textbook. I've done this long enough that I can literally go back to my coda books or whatever and pull out verbatim, like, oh, this is exactly what it says it would do, this individual would do, and there it is. So it's not hard. It's not hard to find that stuff. What's difficult for me is should I? Okay, because at the heart of that, well, I think I'm at 100 and some subscribers now. And I've said this on the few live streams that I did, and I got to fix all that up so I can do proper live streams. Yes, this is a green screen back here because I'm trying to get this all situated to be able to have Ned on a live stream properly with me and interacting and such. Right. But, it comes down to, I know that the topics that I choose to talk about are not comfortable, passive YouTube content. Okay, sure. I realize that. And I also know that in the realm of recovery and doing this type of work, none of this shit was ever going to be easy. Okay? Yeah. And honestly, at the end of the day, if it's not for you, then move the fuck on. I really don't care. I'm not doing this for subscriber count. I'm not doing this for whatever. If one person finds something useful in any of that list of information I provide, or something, or maybe just for a moment they feel like they are not alone, then it'll have served its job. It'll serve its purpose, and I will have done mine. Okay. Yeah. And so that's why I'm not really, I'll put out content, but I'll do it in a way that is honest. I'm not going to try to force anybody to watch my shit. You're not going to see a boatload of clickbait thumbnails out there on crap and whatever. Quite frankly, I just don't have the energy for it and the time. But whatever we do put out, whatever I do put out, it'll come from me, and you can hold me solely responsible for what I say. Okay. Right. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah. What's the funniest moment you've had? Because you bring up Ned again. What's the funniest moment you've had while creating content with Ned?
Well, we've had a lot of stuff that I am being the brainchild behind what I want Ned to be able to do. This is me at odds with myself all the time, going, should I put that kind of shit in there? Should I do whatever? Because like I said, I've had a previous channel with the Spooky Dookie reviews. I got some massive backlash, and it affected my stepson. And because I didn't have a filter, we went pretty hard on a couple channels that their fan base did not like it so much. And so I learned from that. And so some of the moments with Ned is more of like, how far can we push the envelope on this? You know what I mean? I did that one for Sarah Fenton's publishing and Candy 7, where Ned tattooed their names on his ass. We wanted to just do that little thank you thing for them because they've been super awesome and whatever. Sure. But there's a lot where, like, I think some of the funniest moments is when, like, I actually get to be me through Ned and just be like, fuck it, let just say it, just see what happens. And so when I'm using, and you brought it up when we talked, yes, Ned's voice is Morgan Freeman. Ned seems to think that he is the deceased, non-living Morgan Freeman that has traveled back to the present to help me explain the paranormal. So take that for what it's worth. But anyways,
what better person to have behind you?
The voice of God, right? Yeah. So, but Ned is. I love that Ned can do these things, and I'm looking forward to making more content where I can just kind of let him run wild. And that's why we brought Mr. Murder Mittens in, because Ned has to have his little sidekick to be able to do shit. Right. Murder Mittens is the actual demon. So
okay. The cutest demon I've ever seen. So I guess when you're doing your humor, I mean, respectful, right? Being respectful. How do you ensure that the humor is respectful, especially when you're dealing with topics that might be deeply personal to your viewers?
Well, let's start by saying, so I did, and people don't realize that when I make Ned into a video, when I put him in there with it, like, the animation part and going in there and doing all this and shit. There was, for the longest time, I didn't have the PNG file of Ned, so I could just constantly move him around in a Premiere Pro and then CapCuts and doing all that. So I had to do it all individually. So literally it would be, maybe 30 seconds of Ned was like 6 hours of fucking editing.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it just nightmare. But I did this one because I was on a live stream, or I was watching a live stream on I can't remember what it was anyways. And somebody had talked about saying that it was going to be a Rambo Ned, right? Ned, this whole idea of Ned with the bandana on, running around, doing whatever. Well, I put this one together where Ned was blackface from fucking Tropic Thunder. Okay.
Nice.
And he's running around going, "You lip dick motherfucker," whatever. But I'm like, I can't. You know what I mean? I can't put that up. But it's fucking funny to see. But it's like whatever. But again, it's not everybody's going to appreciate your humor.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to get it. And then what you end up seeing is, and this happens a lot, and this is something to be aware of, is when people we fear what we don't understand. Okay. And so if it's a joke that somebody doesn't get, their initial reaction more than likely is going to be, they're going to be put off by it. They're going to be aggravated. There's going to be some type of negative connotation to it. Okay.
Right.
Now, the best we can do as creators and the best that we can do as human beings is just be mindful of that, be thoughtful, but ultimately, man, some of that is on the receiver's end too. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're not going to appeal to everybody, and some, like you were saying earlier, it's like some jokes can fall short because of the audience not quite following what you're doing or understanding, and it's really not on you, and you can't appeal to everybody, but you're at least doing something that's original and unique, and yeah, I think that humor is a strong tool. And
Absolutely.
It's one of those things that, there comes a time when you must be serious, So how do you decide when you're using humor and when you're going to be serious?
I think, probably, if you were to ask my wife, she would tell you that I'm serious all the time.
Okay.
Like I'm like too serious, which in all fairness, I am. And I know that. That's something I'm actually personally working on in myself, is to breathe more, to have that water off a duck's back mentality and all of that. That's a part of my journal, my recovery. So Ned gives me that opportunity to laugh even though I'm not laughing, right? Like Ned has that other side. And I think being serious is not an issue for me. I think being too serious is my issue. And that's where I walk that line of trying to, because you want to have a conversation about something, just ask me. You want to do a live with me about something and find out where I'm coming from, or why I said what I said? Just ask me. You may not like what I have to say, but I will tell you what I think.
Yeah.
That's the way that I live, and that's the way this channel, Debunk the Junk, is going to always be.
Yeah, and I love that. Not being afraid to just be you. I found. With my other channel, I was me, but there was a sort of a filtered me that I was allowing, and I don't feel that it served me very well, whereas I'm over here, it's a lot different, and I'm not afraid to just be who I am and let people know where I'm at in life and what's going on. And it seems like the moment that I stopped caring about my self-image and stuff, things started working out a little bit different. Rob,
and that's not to say that we can't be respectful about it, right?
Sure.
Like, be decent human beings when we're conveying our information or our thoughts or our views. And so that's where, like, I can be serious, but I can be respectful. I can be serious and I can be mindful. I can be humorous and laughing my ass off about something while still being mindful of your emotions and your feelings.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Real quick, I want to thank Rob Linklater for the 50 pounds. Brother, you're a legend, and you say, wow. I'm sorry, but you do not have to be sorry for anything. I appreciate you very much.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
and
incredible.
You know what, Jimmy, I wanted to say, man, I want channels like you, and you are doing, I want this to be successful. And I don't mean that like whatever that level of success is for you, but the fact that you do this, that you bring people on, you get these perspectives, that you do this. This is, I love, and I've said this for a while. Like, YouTube has replaced television. You know what I mean? Like, it's people tune in to YouTube to see what's happening, to catch these lives. That's why lives are so big right now, because they want to see real people behind this, having these conversations, talking, doing whatever. And I love the fact that you're doing this, man. You're doing a phenomenal job.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's about you. It's about, you know, the people in the audience. It's about the people that we are, you know, that we're digesting, that we're watching every day, and the people that we love, and getting to know them a little bit better, you know, and their perspective. So I really appreciate that you get what I'm doing, and I want to thank you for just, you know, you show up, and even asking you to do this for me today is phenomenal. I also want to thank Philip, Stay Tuned CC, for the membership. I didn't mean to overlook you. I wasn't overlooking you. I just hadn't gotten to it yet, but I appreciate you too. You gave a brand new subscriber, Tammy, mom of twins, was gifted a membership. Now I know that I noticed she just walked out right before that happened, but she has a pleasant surprise coming to her whenever she decides to come back. Stay tuned, and Rob, both of you, I cannot thank you enough for the support. It gets me emotional, you know, and then hearing things like what you're saying, all this praise all at once, it's like, my God, overload. Don't cry, you know.
No, bro, you earned this. This is you. You were always capable of this shit. You're discovering yourself. The fact that you're doing this right now is a testament to where you've been and where you're arriving, right? Like this, and that's what's cool about watching this in real time, both now being on here with you, but also in the chat doing what I do. I'm watching you evolve. And that's an amazing process, man. It truly is, to see somebody come into their own, to be comfortable in their own skin, and to find their worth. You know what I'm saying? Because we're all worthy. We're just trying to figure out what that is, you know?
Right.
And I love it.
Yeah.
It's a great
thing. Thank you. Thank you for being so good to me. You know, self-care, practicing self-care, right? It goes on, and what you're talking about here, this whole thing is part of my self-care. Given the emotional demands of your work, and your content creation, how do you practice self-care?
Hold up.
Myco Minerals, I see you. Thank you for the $4.99. What do you got there? Is that an Ibanez? Oh, he can't hear me yet. Live easy, but think first. Is that an Ibanez or a Jackson?
That's an Amazon special. That's
okay.
A $69. I don't give a shit what I bought, but wanted to have one. I played, like I said, I made music for a long time, and a part of my dysfunction, or my whatever hellhole I went through, was I turned away from things that, for many years, and now that I can understand this, is that music was my therapy. Okay. And I used that to keep me balanced, to clear my mind, to do things. And my wife has been, you know, constantly, you should get back into music, you need to do these things. So as far as self-care is concerned, self-care is acknowledging that it's okay to put your ass on timeout, put yourself on timeout.
Yeah.
And go, I can't handle this right now. I have to breathe. I got to recenter myself, think about what's going on. But the other thing is, and this is something that through the recovery work and what I've done, is that I go by the antics that idle hands make destruction. Okay. You need to have something to do. I don't care if it's writing, drawing, playing a sport, making music, whatever the hell that is, that thing that moves you, that gives you that clarity of mind, that you can find your id in, and it feels somehow that you can express yourself through. That's such a gift. It's such a beautiful thing. And I constantly try to push that perspective for people. Like, find something. Well, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to make sense to me or anyone else. It only needs to make sense to you. Sure. You know, and mine happens to be music. It's also doing the Debunk the Junk videos and working on that. You know, but I mean, and I get overwhelmed all the time. Like I said, I probably failed what would be considered a failure in my recovery 1 billion times today. You know, my wife, the last 2 days, she is wanting us to go and start taking walks. and actually wants to build up to a run for a 5K that's happening soon. And I'm like, fuck that, man. I just worked 40 hours this week and I got other shit to do and I'm tired. I don't, my days off, I want to be able to, and even my days off are in college now, and learning other skills and doing things. It's okay to say enough's enough and to just step back for a moment. Right. Take a collective breath, acknowledge where you're at, how far you've come, because it's that appreciation. That's not about what is the terminology, laxing on your laurels or becoming sloppy or becoming lazy. It's about saying, hey, you need to recharge your batteries in order to give the best version of you for yourself, and that's the only way you're going to be able to give that to anybody else. Right. So and she busted my balls hard the last 2 days. She's like, you really don't want to be doing this. I'm like, no, I don't want to be doing this. But you know what? About half hour into it, I'm sweating and I'm like, all right, damn, my lazy ass really needs to start walking some more. Yeah. And then slowly but surely, I'm like, she's right. And more often than not, my wife she's right. She's almost always right. And I owe her so much. But the thing is not everybody's fortunate enough to have that person to promote you, to inspire you, to and that was the thing about, especially in music. I remember I got to that place, I'm like, well, unless I've been drinking or doing whatever, I don't feel inspired to create. And you hear that. That's actually a common thing among creatives, is that I have to be in this altered state in order to be the expressive creative version of myself. And it's just simply not true. And you're just burying that with something else. But ultimately, again, that's to each their own in their journey to discover what that is, but taking that time to be able to reflect, to recharge your batteries. I just started playing guitar again. Right now I took the classes for, I'm doing silversmithing. It's freaking awesome, because through this process, I'm also doing a documentary on a world-renowned Native American Navajo silversmith. And he's wanting me to tell his story about traditionally where the silversmithing came from through their culture, and what it has meant for his life. So he's literally my teacher in the actual skill of the craft, but he's also teaching me about humanity and about a whole. Man, there's so many beautiful things in this world. Yeah. There's a lot of sadness. You got to see through that shit. There's so much beauty. The fulfillment is what you're talking about when it comes to, your guitar, your music, or with what your wife is saying, I want to walk. There are things that you must do every day. I believe every day. You have to tell your family you love them. Tell your friend that you appreciate them, and your family. Do something for your body. If it's walking for half an hour with your wife, or doing 10 push-ups, do that. And then making time every day for the things that you love, whether it's working on your channel or creating music or whatever. And a lot of us will say we don't have time to do this every day, but it may only take 10 minutes, to just stop for a moment. And like you said, I can't do this right now. I have to step away. I have to disconnect. Well, in that moment of disconnect, you go and you strum around on your guitar for a little bit, or you think a little bit harder about what your next topic is going to be on your channel, and you at least open the program and give it a title, so that way you're on the road to making that thing happen. This fulfillment that you must give yourself, and a lot of us deprive ourselves of that because we're so focused on everything else that the world wants us to be doing. And it gets, that kind of stress is what ultimately will break us down and can lead us into more serious mental health problems that we don't realize are there, that are deteriorating us from the inside out. And we become stagnant, unhealthy, unhappy, and angry and bitter. And again, touching back on what we started with, it comes down to doing the work and showing up for yourself. And I was just going to say that's about honoring you. Mm-hmm. That you have to, and this isn't an egotistical thing or whatever you want to call it. to be able to prioritize your needs and to maturely and intellectually understand what that is.
Yeah.
To be able, because, you're only ever going to be able to give the best version of you to anybody else or to anything else if you haven't already taken it for yourself.
Right.
Okay. You got to figure out what that is. And that's hard, man, because like you so well put it, most of us don't, we're like, we don't got time for that shit. I got to show up for work. I got bills to pay. I've got people bitching me out. I've got these problems. I got relationship issues. I got all the noise in the world to prevent you, that clouds your vision from stopping you from being your true self. Okay. Or even identifying and understanding who that person could potentially be. And that's where addiction comes from. That's where mental health crisis comes from. And ultimately all the plethora of shit that comes out of that. So yeah, and that's why, like, I don't, I think we traditionally speaking, unless we were given it 110% every waking moment of our existence, somehow we were failing someone. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a model that has existed for a long time, but it has served no purpose because we're right here, right now.
Yeah.
There's as many, we're here anyways, we've got this, but how many of us come from broken homes? How many of us come from fucking having issues we don't even want to acknowledge in ourselves because we don't feel like we are capable of even discussing what that is. And the mental health issues, especially among men. And I'm not trying to be sexist about all this. I don't play that game, but I'm talking about, I've sat with so many, especially people 45 up to 60, 70 years old, where they're like, I went my whole life not even realizing that this shit was happening to me because I was told, shut up, do my job.
Right.
Okay. And then later on, I'm like, I'm an alcoholic. I'm all of these things. My kids really don't really care what I did for them. I mean, the list goes on. And a part of that just becomes, we lost who we are. Okay. Or maybe some of us never knew who that was because we didn't have the chance to discover who that person could be.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, it's been 2 hours, and typically right now I would take us to a break, which I will. But first, I have to call out more. Gifted Wayne Dawson gave Blueberry329 a gifted membership. And it seems that Rob Linklater has also done this. Let me take a look here. Gifted 10 GhostQuest memberships, but I'm not seeing to whom it went. Where are there they are. There they are. So we've got Hair Force One, Lindsay, Shell Dust, Jim Daly, Rural Chaos TV, LJ Jinx, Haunted Fries, and I think that's it. No, The Occult Life. And I think that's everybody. Thank you so much, Rob, for gifting 10 memberships out. And again, I know some of these people aren't here, but they have a nice surprise in their inbox waiting for them as well. Jonathan,
you guys are all rock stars.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolute legends.
Legends.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you guys so much for the support. I can't thank you enough. I really can't. And we're going to take a break. Let Jonathan go and, refresh. I'm going to do the same thing.
Yeah, take a piss. It's all right.
Right, yeah. There's that too. Yeah. And we will be back momentarily. Be sure to be thinking of questions, and I will provide a link for people who want to call in. Thanks again, Jonathan, for taking your time for this interview today, and we will continue on into the night momentarily. Hey, we are back. Welcome back, Jonathan, to End of the Night. I appreciate you once again for being here, and we've got the section of the show that I think everybody enjoys, questions and call-ins, which there are some new people here. If you do choose to call in, All you have to do is just click that link at the top and it will set you backstage. I will see that you're backstage. Once I have an opportunity to bring you on, I will. I just ask that you keep your questions to a 60-second minimum. You can stay on the stage while Johnathon answers your question, or you could choose to leave the stage directly and just listen in the stream. Either way, once your question has been answered, if you're still on the stage, go ahead and promptly exit the stage so that way we can get to the next caller, provided we have one. And if you're going to ask questions in the chat, just put a capital Q at the beginning of it so that way I can see that question and try not to overlook anybody's questions. So here we go. It's time for questions and call-ins. I'll get started with what are some of the most common paranormal tools that you believe are more hype than helpful?
More hype than helpful. Well, I think any app, any spirit talker or spirit communication app is more hype than it is helpful. And I say that ironically because while simultaneously rather, my wife runs an app herself almost all the time. We'll be watching shows. She watches paranormal content constantly with me too. But it's this one, it's kind of like a spirit magic 8-ball thing where words will come up on it and it'll like be all these words or whatever, and then you're left to decipher what it's saying. And I think that especially with spirit talking apps or word bank apps, what we've seen and what we've seen thus far through YouTube and the content creation this way is allowing the app to create the entire narrative for the episode or the investigation, if you want to call it that. So, and by that I'm referring to, you can sit there and let that damn thing run. And I've done some shit where I literally left a second phone of mine with the Spirit Talker app on in the bathroom when I left for work. Left it in the bathroom at my house just to see what would be said on it while I'm gone. And because I had a whole ploy, and it was going to be that Ned was actually sitting in the bathroom running the app, and there's a whole thing with that. But anyways, and it's just all of these words that come through. And I think that when you watch a lot of the paranormal channels and the content that's out there, they're allowing the app to control the narrative for what they're presenting as evidence. Okay. And it's, so in my opinion, that app, the Spirit Talker apps or any communication app that way is highly suspect. Okay. Now I'll also say though, like that magic 8-ball thing, whatever the fuck it is my wife uses, dude, I've seen some shit that comes out of that where interpretation, what you choose to put to it is like, holy balls, that there's some actual interesting stuff that can happen.
Right.
But that's at the extent of your imagination.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, what do you want to run with? Now I personally am more interested in, say, anything that has to do with optical, like if it's night vision and auditorial, like full spectrum audio equipment where you can like, and I said this in another live stream video or something where, when I was in the service, we used an actual audio device that we could tell how far away and pinpoint where the source came from. It literally put it out in a 3-dimensional view for you so you could see where it came from, where it originated from. And so my mind went to, in the realm of paranormal, well, would make sense. Oh, did you hear that knock, dude? Where'd that come from? Well, if you have that such device, you'd be like, fuck, it came over there from the wall. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like there's ways to implement these tools and this technology that I think would be extremely interesting and perhaps actually useful in determining or data collecting.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Booberry is asking, Johnathon, has your wife done anything about her Angel YouTube channel? I love the idea she had. If she hasn't, tell her to get on it.
So Taylor's my wife. Taylor is my angel. And we'll get into that at some point. I'll have eventually she's going to be on videos with me. We have her. She is the epitome of positivity. She was a former Air Force. I was a Marine. She was Air Force. But teacher. She taught for a long time, almost nearly as long as I did, almost 2 decades. extremely patient, polite, and caring to a fault. And I've had to fulfill the role of making sure that that's not manipulated or taken advantage of. And so she's apprehensive. She has a whole TikTok thing that she does, which I can't, TikTok sort of thing, whatever. But where she's got quite a following on there, but she's posting like positive stuff constantly. And that's because that's what she is. She's positive. So actually, she came up with the idea. She asked me one time, and I think we were watching a Paranormal Files video with Colin, and she just says to me out of nowhere, she's like, "Man, do we ever get tired of watching all this dramatic bullshit?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, I'm like, I'm a cynical. I'm like, yeah, I do. The drama gets to be a bit much. Right. And she said, "No, why isn't there anything ever positive about the paranormal? Everything's a freaking demon, and I got scratched, or it's a fucking shadow enemy, whatever, And why isn't there anything about, well, this was a positive paranormal." Right. And that's why, and thus from that came the positively paranormal idea. And so eventually we will do that. She wants to talk about them because she's very big into spirituality. Like I said, she's the one who got me to do Reiki, to learn Reiki with her, and understand energy work, and to really kind of look into that and meditate and do things of that nature. I still, like I said, I come at all this with a skeptical mind and an inquisitive mind, but because I'm looking for tangible data, something of, that I can say, yes, there's validity in what we're doing here and why we promote and why we do what we do. But eventually we'll do stuff that way.
Yeah, that sounds phenomenal. I love that. Yeah. Wisdom is asking, do you think that denial is also a big concern with mental health?
Denial. We all live in a state of denial from time to time. Mental health and denial. So typically speaking, there's a form of denial that was the precursor to the mental health crises, okay? Because you only ever have a crisis when, like I said, there's only a problem when there's a problem, right? Right. So denial would be, nah, man, I can get through this. Or denial is, it's okay, like for me, and I'll just use my own thing with alcoholism. My denial started when I realized, or at least I convinced myself, that I could drink a little bit in order to get me to go to bed at night. That after all my shit was done, that I could numb myself out to eventually fall asleep. And then that progressed into, I started drinking a little bit earlier in the evening, to now I have to have it with dinner. To before you know it, I'm drinking all day long. Yeah. And I have to have it. It became, and that denial in me was first saying that I can handle this on my own, that I can handle this. And clearly I couldn't handle it. Mm-hmm. So yes, denial is absolutely, but more often it's the precursor to more issues, right? Or something that's underlining.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question there, Wisdom. I appreciate that one.
Yeah, it is.
Myco Minerals asks, what would you say to someone who is looking for help with an issue or substance but doesn't know where to start?
So, and that's the first thing, and it's always the scariest, and it's the most difficult, and that's when you've concluded or you've arrived at the thought that maybe I might need help, and then you're left with, fuck, should I say anything about this? The stigma, right? And then the next part after that is, well, even if I choose to say something about this, well, what is the outcome? What am I looking for? And it's about getting the information. Information, man. I think that, I had to take classes, go to school for this shit to understand the different services that are out there, the programs that it isn't just about AA and Al-Anon and all this, that these groups that no one wants to admit that they're in, and the fucking stigma that surrounds that stuff. But it's informing yourself and understanding that, and because it's through that process of informing yourself about what's going on with yourself, is you will come to terms with the fact that you're not alone. Mm-hmm. Okay, because the biggest misconception, and devil's in the details, so to speak. And if you want to talk about negative energy, the actual demon, the demon is the one that tells you you're worthless, that you deserve this, that you are alone.
Right.
That is the lie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Michael Burkeen asks, what is Ned's favorite hobby?
Right now, it's playing Fortnite. Oh, no, he likes being an asshole on Fortnite. No, when Ned is not busy being a punk, he sits around and reads the thesaurus. No, I don't. Ned does a lot of different things. He likes tormenting the cats. I think Ned's he's a good sidekick for me to have. Ned keeps me real. I think his favorite hobby probably is busting my balls, actually.
Yeah. Well, someone's got to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Again, questions and call-ins. Don't be afraid to click that link if you want to come on and ask some questions. And don't be afraid to fill up my chat with questions. I will get to them. I promise. Let's see here. Trying to look through some of the questions that I have set up for you.
Well, if we get hung up, man, I can always do story time. I've got other paranormal experiences that I had.
Well, what are your thoughts on the commercialization of paranormal tools and how it affects, the field of paranormal investigation?
Well, I did a video on EMF detectors. That was one of my big ones, one of the first ones that was actually well received. I think to this day it probably has the most views, which is whatever standard that is. But I did a deep dive into EMF detectors, and a part of that research, part of reading about it and whatever, discovering that the EMF detector is an actual real tool that has real life applications. And when I say that, and I'm not trying to be demeaning towards ghost hunting or whatever, what I'm saying is that it was a tool designed for a specific function, and it was to prevent radioactive experiences, or in other words, it was used basically for workers to be able to determine if a system or a piece of machinery was unhealthy for human usage. Okay.
Right.
And so to see EMFs then brought into the realm of the paranormal, on one hand, I would say, well, that kind of makes sense, because if you go with what is being, conjuncture with, like, well, ghosts create electromagnetic energy, right? That's a theory, right? So then, by that standard, or by that metric, you would say then that an EMF detector, electromagnetic field observer, would then detect said energy, right? Now, but that's not what it was designed to do. The theory says that it should be able to do that, but that's not what the tool was designed to do. So when I see real life tools being implemented in the paranormal, I have to ask myself, well, where's the validity? Because the tool itself was created that is absolutely capable of being fact checked, which is why it exists. Okay. Well, where's the fact checking in the paranormal for how it operates and what it does? And I'm not being dismissive for the people because I'm all for exploration and experimentation, but do your research, why and what it does, and then use it, and then collect your data so that we can actually, and that's the thing, man, if we want to really have that conversation about the state of the paranormal, it's, the level of what it takes to actually conduct research or to be an investigator. And I do quotes a lot on this because I think there's a misunderstanding and a very loose terminology or understanding the actual wordage used to describe this. An investigator, to be an actual investigator, you have no biasness. You go into an environment, you collect data that has shit to do with your biasness, and you then present that data to be interpolated by a researcher to figure out what to acquire facts. I mean, that's the end result, right?
Yes.
So if you're walking into an environment with a haunted house with an EMF detector and saying, I'm going to go catch me some ghosts, you're already biased.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're doing. You're going to, so anything that comes out of that EMF detector, because of your biasness, could be then interpolated into that's paranormal activity.
Right.
When the likelihood of what an actual EMF detector was designed to do was to read electromagnetic fields,
Yeah.
which could be anything. They are naturally occurring in this world.
Yeah.
They can emanate from wiring in a wall to, I mean, and there's plenty of videos out there debunking that shit and doing whatever. So I'm not going to beat a horse on that. But I do love the idea. Like, I remember watching a video, and I want to say it was, I can't remember what it was. It was a live that they went and they took an EMF or a REM pod it was, and they put it in a Faraday cage. Okay. And the reason for that is because they found out that their walkie-talkies were setting the damn thing off. And so they actually placed it in a Faraday cage to see what would happen. And sure as shit, it negated the radio waves, and then the REM pod didn't go off anymore. So there's ways to do this, to implement these tools. But like I said, though, as far as like apps are concerned, like Spirit Talker apps or the SLS camera stuff and all that stuff, you know, you're taking something that was designed to do something else that had another function, and you're implementing it into the realm of the paranormal. Now that's great, but just present it for the information and the data that it is. Don't.
Yeah. Well,
that's again, this is my opinion. Jonathan's opinion from Debunk the Junk. This is the way I go with it.
Sure. Well, you know, and my friend Kenny Biddle would argue it's not a theory, right? We've gone into theory, yeah. It's an idea, and then the burden of proof lies on you to be able to show that it is in fact spirits that are setting this thing off. And so far, that is not. There's just no way to do that. You know what I mean? There's just no.
You know
way.
what I love? What I love is that there's the potential that it may be.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That spirit of exploring and discovering and wanting to find out. Go out and try, man. But don't allow yourself to become the heel of a joke because you know.
Yeah.
You do your due diligence. Get informed. Figure it out. If you're gonna get an app, to especially use an app, if you think this app is having a demonic voice coming through telling you some shit that it did, do yourself justice and actually research the app first to see if it is a database, how that's working. I mean, like I said, it's just, again, we can interpolate things in many different ways. That's the beauty of this. We're all entitled to an opinion. Okay?
Yeah.
So we can have that opinion, but ultimately we're still trying to discover a truth, right?
Right.
The only way to discover said truth is to cut through the bullshit and figure out, well, what is actually applicable? What can we use? What's actually happening?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I'm not saying that the EMF detectors aren't doing that. I've seen some very interesting things by people that I trust. And it's like, wow, that's really cool, you know. So who knows? But yeah, I get where you're at with that, and it's a strong case, and I there's a point of responsibility that you're taking on when you're doing this kind of research, and to be irresponsible with your findings or what you're claiming as your findings, that can be detrimental as well. Michael Burkeen is asking, who is your favorite, Ned or Mr. Murder Mittens?
The fuck, I can't. Both.
Yeah.
Who's watching? No. I'm partial to Ned. Murder Mittens he can be a real prick. He likes to just tear shit up in the house.
Well, he is a demon.
They get along fine. So
yeah. Wisdom is asking, are either of you going to be in Boo Productions Live for mental health this weekend? Last I knew, Jeff did have some spots available, so I don't know if you're a part of that yet, but I can put you in contact with him if you want to be. I will be with Jeff at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this August 31st for that. So have you made arrangements with him? Because I do believe he's got some spots left open.
Jeff, they did reach out to me.
Okay.
And it's a lot of like what ended up happening between you and I today. Because I'm constantly working or somewhere else, and so I think I'm not certain if they chose to just fill that with someone else or whatever. But because my work schedule is crazy too, so I would love to. Shit, I even do it from work if I have time just to jump on and say whatever. But because that would require me taking that whole day from work and doing that, which I'm more than willing to do because it's obviously it's kind of at the heart and soul of what I do already. So
yeah, that would be perfect question there too. Wisdom bringing in with the real questions tonight. I appreciate it because I'd love to see that. Wayne Dawson asks, out of all paranormal, cryptids, UFO, what do you most believe in?
I believe in us. Um, I think of all of them that I most believe in. That's a hard question. That's a good question. It's a hard one because the
Yeah.
truth is, there's a part of me that believes in every single, has to believe
Right.
in the potential of all of it. And then there's another part of me where I'm like, but I have to have the evidence. Okay, I have
Right.
to have the data to work with. But then there's yet another part of me that just is excited at the possibility of these things, and then the experimentation, the exploration to discover these things. And that's the other part of this, man. It's like the whole deal is, let's just take a Bigfoot for a moment, all right, or the Sasquatch, whatever you want.
Right.
Man, I've had some native elders, a specific native elder tell me a story once that whether I choose to believe in it or not, that man absolutely believed.
Yeah.
And that was good enough for me. Okay.
Right. Right.
And so when I look at that and I say, there's a very real part of me that doesn't want Bigfoot to ever be discovered. Right.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
I want the mystery. I
Right.
want the magic in the world yet. That's why I'm like looking at this is like, man, there's a part of me that for as much as I go on about the paranormal and about using critical thinking and all that shit, I don't want to disprove it just as much as I don't want to prove it, because I want it to be potential, right? Because it's through the potential that we strive, that we aspire, that we do the work. And that's ultimately, that's the basis for me. But of all of them, if I thought that there would be one that might have the chance above the rest of them, I would have to go with a cryptid, man. Like not just Bigfoot, but a cryptid in general, because on a very real basis, like tangible basis, there's so much of this planet that we don't know about. There's so much of this life that we don't know about. But there's so many actual physical locations still yet on this planet that we know nothing about.
Absolutely.
Is it possible that there's something there? I have to believe so.
Sure.
I want to believe so.
Yeah. Yeah. We do have a caller calling in, and I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. The freshly squeaky clean Wayne Dawson just enjoyed himself a bath. How you doing, Wayne? You
What's
got a
up,
question
Mr.
for
Dawson?
Jonathan?
Hi,
for us
Jimmy.
tonight?
Hi, Jonathan. You okay?
Not too bad, brother. Not
Yep,
too
hanging
bad.
in there, my friend.
Yeah, squeaky clean. Yeah, Jonathan, I'd just like to know, this is basically a question following on from wisdom. People with mental health, how would you actually convince someone with mental health problems that they've actually got a mental health problem when they don't realize themselves that they've got one? How would you go around convincing them to seek help?
I think that first and foremost, it's like that whole leading the horse to water scenario, right? Like you can lead them to water, but you can't make them drink, right? And maybe that's a poor analogy, but
I think it's a perfect analogy, to be honest.
At the end of the day, you have to remember that you're not saving anyone. Okay, that is not what you're here for. That's not what I'm here for. And that's kind of like when I go into my sessions, or when I do my public speaking and doing whatever, I say I'm not here to save you. No one is coming to save you. You are going to save yourself, and you have to be willing or wanting to do that. And so with mental health, it's such a difficult and touchy. First of all, we've got all the stigmas that surround it in the first place. So that's okay. To be able to have that conversation, right? To find a safe and I think we could do, if we're the person on the outside looking in and wants to do help or to be that person, is about holding space, is about creating a safe space where that person can trust you, that you will have their best interests at heart, right? That shit that's not free. That shit doesn't come easy. That's where the work is, okay? And there's some people that will never reach that. They'll never get there. They'll never want to ask for help. Or more to the point, like how Wisdom was saying about denial, they're so down that hole for themselves. And this is why we have crisis. This is why we have these things. Ultimately, it will arrive at some type of experience, something that, be it a car accident or an overdose, and that's where I see most of it is overdose, either intentionally or inadvertent. And then from there, now you have to deal with the issue, right? Now, either you're going to court because you drove and you shouldn't have been driving, or you were under the influence. Now you got into a fight and you shouldn't have because you know, whatever it may be, or you might have overdosed and you ended up in the hospital. Thank God for that, not the other alternative, right?
Yeah.
And again, we only ever deal with the problem when it's a problem, right? So
And sometimes it's too late.
you can be there to aid along that, but it isn't your job to get that horse to drink, okay? That's not gonna happen. And you will drive yourself mad. Shit, dude, I did that for a long time. The people that I've lost, where I thought I failed, that'll destroy you. And that is not your rock to carry, okay? That's not how this works. And I think ultimately trying to get a person to acknowledge that they may need help, you can continue to be a safe, loving, and available individual. Safe, loving, available human being. That's what I ask. That's a part of the Reiki concept and the whole principle behind it. Am I safe? Am I loving? Am I available? That doesn't make you a fucking doormat, okay?
Right.
It does not make you a glutton for punishment. That means that you're capable, that you can hold space, and should that conversation or the opportunity arise, that you have built trust, that they will acknowledge that, because ultimately they got to drink that water. Ultimately, they got to ask for that help. So a lot of what this is unfortunately repercussionary or after the fact stuff, right? Because again, it's only a problem when it's a problem.
Yeah. Excellent question and excellent answer.
That is, thank
you.
You got somebody causing problems back there.
Yes, definitely. Always causing problems. Always, yeah.
Hey, wait, I want to
by,
ask you real quick. Did I answer that okay for you?
That was brilliant answer. Thanks, Jonathan.
I mean, because I don't, like I said, I'm not a bearer of false hope. I'm not going to tell you something that I can't try to figure out. But if there is someone who specifically that someone's weighing on your heart that you think needs help, I'm going to make this. I want to make this clear. If you know at any moment that person is either a risk to themselves or to someone else.
Yeah.
For me, for my job, what I am obligated by law to report and to do something. That's because if I don't, that can come back on me. Okay. But as a human being, as a citizen of this world, if you know that to be the case, then do the fucking right thing and get them help, even if they don't want it. Okay. You can deal with the aftermath later. But that shit, when it's real, we don't have time for that. It just got to get addressed.
Really? Sorry, I'm getting distracted again.
Well,
okay, thanks very much.
Yeah, Mother. Thank you for coming on and asking your question. Always welcome. Always welcome to come up and ask questions, my friend. Thank you very much.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Have a good one.
Bye.
Right. So, excellent questions from the audience tonight. Wisdom's asking, this one might be stupid, but about the Faraday cage, could it not be used to trap a ghost? What do you think about that?
I think anything's possible if we can figure out how to. Here's the thing, like, because I remember the first time I watched Ghostbusters when I was a kid.
Right.
And they busted out the trap. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And I remember even thinking as a kid, going, "Damn, that would be cool."
Right.
You know, there's got to be some type of like vortex, or I didn't even know what a fucking vortex was, but like something like a big vacuum cleaner that could suck the shit up and be able to pull it in. You know. But could a Faraday cage, if it's able to negate, now that's to say that it's not negating what's already inside or within the realm. And again, I'm not a professional in Faraday cages, but what I would think is that logically, if it's nullifying outside interference, then it would only stand to reason that it would be what's already currently inside the Faraday cage. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And you would have to have some way of being able to get the spirit or entity, whatever, within the Faraday cage. But I love the idea of the Faraday cage. I love the fact that at least from the use of the Faraday cage, you can then have data to work with and say, like I said on that program, they figured out that whatever that frequency that those walkie-talkies were operating on, that it did absolutely negate that from affecting the REM pod. So
right. Yeah, that makes me wonder about if I just put a radio next to a REM pod, what would happen? You know, and could be that some of these signals or these false positives are actually just from radio frequencies rather than, of course, the spirits of the dead. It seems like a more logical. We talk about Occam's razor, you know. What's more likely?
And perfect, good word droppage there, brother. Yeah, I use Occam's razor all the time.
Yeah,
and it's because and this is again, it's like, I'm not trying to be a party pooper or crash or shit on anybody's ideology for what they want to use. I'm just simply saying, let's get the information. Yeah. Let's actually look at it and say, because fuck, man, if you tell me that a Faraday cage has the potential to actually trap a spirit, let's figure that shit out and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Again, me walking the fence is saying, I don't really know if I want a spirit getting trapped, because I don't want it to be over. You know what I mean? I feel like that's going to be the deal, right? And I wonder if that's why we don't have that. There's not more of a scientific field involved in the paranormal. And I know that there's a whole topic debate on that. It would be like, well, they don't want to risk their credibility being associated with a, whatever taboo topic or subject matter or whatever. But I actually think it would be amazing to see more of a scientific approach to actual paranormal research. And I know that, and I actually said this before, and actually Side-Eye Guy had a guy on a video that he did, and it was a gentleman that set up audio recorders all over the place, and they did this for months and months and months, and then debunked the information that came through it. And I thought to myself, man, could you imagine that being done with video cameras? Like if you set up video cameras and you just left them running for months on end, and you were constantly going in, checking the data, doing all that. The problem is that's not marketable. In the sensationalized field of the paranormal, YouTube paranormal, and just whatever shit they want to throw out there, that's not marketable. No one wants to sit through that shit. Even the fucking researchers don't want to sit through hours of that shit, right? If you edit something, you don't want to have to do that. But for the off chance that there might be something, now, like I said, and it's just a thought that I had. I was like, man, I guess maybe not many people would watch static cameras for fucking 3-6 months at a time. But if it gives us the opportunity to actually have some type of evidence, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Booberry asks, can you tell us the story about how Mr. Murder Mittens got his name?
So Mr. Murder Mittens. Murder Mittens got his name originally because when we found him, he had a dead mouse. He apparently there was mice in the yard that we didn't know about, but he made an offering to us of a dead mouse, which if cats bring you something, at least the way I interpret it, it's an offering. But then Murder Mittens got his name also because he likes to tear into Ned. So it's kind of funny when he goes after him, he's got scratches all over him. Now you could say a demon did
that. Michael Burkine asks, what does Ned think of the afterlife?
He thought it was bullshit. That's why he's back. No, he's like, you said it wasn't for me, man. I got to go and figure this shit out. Maybe we can try to figure this out. So, Ned, and I have a lot of stuff that Ned and I were working on and spitballing for ideas. And one of the big ones that we want to, and this actually started being in production, but I wanted to have Ned literally kind of do what you and I are doing right now, Jimmy, or what you do is like have a conversation with Ned, being like, hey, man, give your perspective of the paranormal. Give your perspective. Tell us what it's like to actually be a ghost, right? And of course, his cynicism and his sarcastic ass is going to be like, dude, I fucking hate it when people keep busting up into my crib and fucking demanding shit. Right? Brothers are just trying to take a dump, you know what I mean? And I got people, who's there? Who, and but again, with the humor and to do whatever. But I think Ned's cool with being around and trying to give encouraging words of wisdom and bust my balls. So.
Well, and I mentioned it backstage, and I'll say it here. I'd actually like to sit down with Ned and have a conversation with him as well. So maybe that'll happen sometime in the near future.
I will claim no responsibility for what he may or may not say. All right. So.
Fair enough. Alyssa, who is new to the channel, is asking, what are your thoughts on those who seem to use people's past loved ones as their evidence on an investigation? Just apologizing for asking, but never apologize. And I also want to say something earlier. Wisdom said it might be a stupid question. And listen, the only stupid questions are those that don't get asked.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and we can't be those people. We can ask questions, man. That's what.
Absolutely.
If that's why we're here. That's
Yeah.
what this beautiful platform allows us to do, is ask the questions.
That's right.
So now, so to answer that particular one, my thoughts on people. All right, I'm gonna go a little bit, because I know that the hot button topic is going to be the Ouija board couple and all that shit. All right. But I'm gonna go with something a little bit different. I watched a guy called Huff Paranormal for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I watched him because I was trying to figure out the technology and the shit that he was using. Now, there was a part of me initially that was like, man, maybe there is something with frequencies and crystals and all this shit. Because I understand, as far as like the Reiki part and energy work that way, I absolutely believe that we have a biosphere and that we affect our environment, and those things in our environment affect us. So this was something where I was like, okay, is it possible that he's having actual spirit communication? And then, of course, that would require someone being dead, right? In order to have spirit communication. Now, what I didn't know at the time when I first started watching him was that he had a whole private thing that he does where his members get to talk to their loved one and all this shit, okay? And now, though I do understand a lot of the technology, because I spent a good deal of time researching it and what he was doing with the effects pedals, with allowing, and then finding out later that he is in fact using an audio bank that is of the person, that can be manipulated in such a way that does infer that it's having some type of intellectual conversation. Now, you have to be a special kind of fucked up to play on people's emotions and their deceased members and their grieving process.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So I don't like it. I don't agree with it. And that's, I guess, one of those hard no's that Ned and I take.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate Alyssa's question, because yeah, I mean, that's really what, again, that's my same battle, and meeting another soldier like yourself is very refreshing. To hear you talk about it is wonderful. Wisdom asks, what if people believe what they're experiencing is real and it's not?
You know,
I mean, how do you handle that?
So, because here's the thing, like, if in fact, you know, because ultimately, like, even within the example I gave of my friend that straight up thought he saw people in his house and saw what developed into entities in his house. You know, my training, or my just being what I want to believe is a good human, I was holding space. So the power of that was I believe that he believes. Okay. Right. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's enough to say, you know what, I may not agree with and I obviously didn't, but I believe that he believed. Okay. And so working through that with that individual, and at the end of the day, and that's the shit that I'm waiting for. That's what I'm waiting for us to find and see, is I want to be proven wrong. Right. I want my skepticism, I want that. I want to have, and I've had my experiences enough to keep me sitting there going, there is possibility. So it's not for me to fucking judge if someone's actually having. That's why, and I wanted to say this too about the paranormal in general. You ever consider, and if you look at the narratives about the paranormal, it's usually, I experienced this. I had this experience. I saw this. I'm starting to develop the concept that perhaps the paranormal is exactly that. It's meant to be a personal experience.
Right.
This would explain why we don't have the smoking gun of paranormal evidence, the full fucking body apparition decided to pop up right now, if Ned wanted to bounce in here. You know, because it's a personal, and it's where you're at in your life, where you're at emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Maybe that's what the paranormal actually is. And then we could go down the hole of like, well, what's residual energy? Do I, like, that's another thing. Do I believe in, yes, I do. I believe that environments can store and at specific points in time release energy. We actually know this on a scientific level. It can absolutely happen. You can burn a log, it turns into flame. I mean, there's actual applications in here where we could really take a look at that. And you can look into the stone tape theory and different things of that. So what would be considered residual energy? Like, so you go into, and this one actually happened to me. I remember when, after my grandmother passed away, I sat with her in the hospital until she passed. And I had to go and get later her stuff put together and whatever. And she had this, it was an old cigar box. Because back in the day, she actually smoked cigars. But she would keep all her little knickknacks and her favorite little things in it. Well, when I opened that cigar box, this smell of roses, and anyways, it was the smell of her perfume came out of that box. Now, there was no perfume in that box. There was no bottles of perfume in that box.
Right.
Could that not have potentially been residual energy, even through the essence of the smell?
Right.
That triggered my mind, that let me think of her. And obviously going through the grieving process and doing all that. So, I mean, like I said, there's possibilities all over the place. And so, and at the end of the day, it's not for me to judge your personal experience. That's yours. It's for you to figure out. And what does it mean to you?
Right. Julie R asks, wouldn't or shouldn't you suggest counseling to someone, not just being self-aware?
So counseling, I think, again, typically speaking, these are all after the fact situations. Counseling usually comes after there was a problem and something happened, and then, because more often than not, people are in counseling because they're either being court ordered or there was some type of crisis that took place. Now, if you're able to create a safe space where you are capable of communicating to a person that perhaps maybe counseling could be a viable option for them, you'd be remiss in being a good human if you didn't make that suggestion.
Sure.
Okay. Now, and I know where people would be like, oh man, I don't know if I want to say that to a person because that might affect our friendship or the way they view me. You got to get out of your own fucking ego's way. And
Yeah, totally.
if it's serious enough to be that, if you believe it to be, then do the right thing.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
I hope that answered that question.
Very good. Laura from Rothside Paranormal is asking, you might have answered this already. Have you been on an investigation and what were your findings?
So briefly, my wife and I actually got called in to do a house cleaning. All right. And this, well, we've done several different things, but this particular one was a young lady who thought that there was some type of, what ended up happening is even while we were on site, we were doing this, going through and just checking stuff out. And I want to state this, that I didn't go there going, I'm going to go ghost bust some shit. I'm going to go fucking lay the law down on a demon or fucking whatever. I was like, let's go see what's going on, right? And my wife is more like, hey, I can come in, you know, she fucking saged the whole house. She did Palo Santo and sage, went around the house. But while she's doing this, she's talking to the girl and getting the feel for where she's at and actually doing the human thing by having conversation, see what's going on in the girl's life and what's not. And she happened to know the girl previously, and which is why the girl felt comfortable enough to reach out to us and ask to their house. But anyways, while we're there, and this is funny because it was the one and only time I ever used an app. And I had it on my phone, and it was the necrophonic, I think it was. And so my deal is like, I fucking walk off. I'll go and walk wherever it is. I don't care if it's a big ass building, if it's a house, resident, whatever. I'm the guy that'll go into a basement in the dark and just see what's going on and let myself be immersed into the environment to see what I can smell, hear what I can do, to do those things. And anyway, so I went into the bedroom, and she had mirrors that were all lined up on the wall. And wouldn't you know it, that fucking Necrophonic app said mirrors, and then it said portal. Okay. And I'm like, I don't believe in that. That's not whatever. But even on coincidence that happened, that was a pretty compelling thing to have happen.
Sure.
Right. Now, the interesting thing about that particular time is that when I went, because I go outside around the property and do whatever. Turns out that I found different stones were placed on the corners of the house and around the property that had satanic imagery on them. Okay. Then doing research, finding out that the previous people that had lived in this place, there had been rumors that they were practicing this shit, blah, 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 whatever it was. So I told the girl, I was like, you know what, I found this. Do you want me to remove it? I'll take it home. I'll take it home because I don't, whatever, but I'll take it home with me and we'll dispose of it properly. And she said, absolutely. And a part of me didn't even want to fucking say anything because I didn't want to feed into the mentality that, oh shit, there is a demon in this house and whatever. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I couldn't be remiss in having seen this shit all over the place and not say something about it, right?
Right.
So I did it. The funny thing is so my wife, we changed the house, talked to the girl, turned out everything, and as of this day, she's perfectly fine. And even if that was a psychosis where I removed those objects and gave enough validity to that so that she let that go, or maybe there was a demon attached to those objects, I don't know. I can tell you what we did with them though. We took them home and we actually made a circle in the yard and lit incense and sage and palo santo all over those fuckers for days, just left them there. And it became a ritual for us to go out, light this stuff. Because in my mind, I'm like, you know what? If there is something in these things, the fuck if it's coming in my house, right? So, or it's going to be attached to me. So that's how we handled it. And I just thought it was interesting because it was one of those weird times where that app actually did say something relevant, which I could have fucking went crazy with. And then like, it said portal, it said mirrors. Oh my God, you know what I mean? But fucking don't be stupid. It's a word bank that actually said it may have done that. And on the off chance that it was accurate or there was something, we did our due diligence, saged the house, talked with her, did follow-up work with her just to see how she was doing. Continue to this day, still have conversations with this girl. You know, and turns out that, and again, I won't say names or whatever, but she had other things happening in her life at that time.
Yeah.
Other pressures, other things. And it ended up that the conversations we had with her had absolutely nothing to do with the paranormal, but how to address the things that were actually happening in her life.
Right.
And she took some of those to heart, implemented what she needed to. Is it a coincidence that there's no more spooky dookies in her house? I don't know, but she did what she needed to do.
Yeah. We have time for one more question, but before I get to that question, again, Rob Linklater has gifted yet another 10 GhostQuest memberships. Ian Cavaney, Boo Productions Paranormal, Debunk the Junk, Fantastic Publishing, Ryan Turner, Giselle, and Michael, as well as Caitlin Jones, and Michael Moss, Glenda Watt, have all been gifted memberships from Rob Linklater. You guys all have access to special perks. There's fun emojis and a couple of extra videos that y'all have access to now. And really appreciate Rob for being such a avid supporter and always being here. I appreciate that so much. Absolute legend. Final question comes from Philip asking, what is Ned's favorite pudding?
He actually likes the chocolate and vanilla mixed.
Nice.
He likes mixing the shit together. Yeah. He's odd like that, but he does.
Excuse me. All right. Well, our 3 hours is up. Does it feel like it's been 3 hours?
Dude, this has been awesome. Thank you. I can't say that enough, Jimmy. Seriously, thank you for having me on, brother. You did an amazing job. I hope I wasn't a horrible guest.
No, not at all.
Like I said, man, I'll say what I'm going to say, and you know, I might, again, I'm Debunk the Junk isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I'm okay with that. If there's something that people can get out of it, hope. At the end of the day, that's really what this comes down to, is hope. So we're not alone in this. And like I said, wherever we're going in this world, we're going together.
Yeah. This has been one of my favorite conversations so far, and it is absolutely one of the reasons why I love the show so much, and I love having people like you on. It's so, it's just enlightening, and there's nothing like a good long form, good discussion about topics that are sensitive and bringing to light perspective, because just as you said, there might be one person who really needs what we did here today, and that is also enough for me.
And that's all I want to say too, to anybody who's in the chat or listening or watching this later. And if you think that sometimes you have to get out of your own way, and that means letting go of the grief, letting go of the pain, to be able to, or use those things as motivation. And if you know that, if you're even questioning or thinking that you might need help, or you might need to reach out or to do some research to figure it out, don't hesitate. And the world is, I know it can be scary, and there's a lot of assholes out there and a lot of bullshit, misinformation, but there's a lot of beauty and a lot of truth, and there's a lot of fucking good people out there that are willing to help and do what they can. You're not alone. You're never alone.
I love that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here shortly, in probably the next 30 minutes, I will be going live again with the famous game night, because we missed game night last week. So anybody that wants to join in, you are welcome to do so. I'd be happy to see you there, Mr. Johnathon, if you want to. Yeah, so this has been a wonderful, enlightening conversation this evening. I'm James Mitchell, and this has been Into the Night.
Much love, everybody.